Hunter x Hunter is one of the most critically acclaimed manga ever created. The series is exhilarating, thought-provoking, and just plain exciting. The anime itself was such a great experience, but if you really want to get the full Hunter x Hunter experience, you gotta read the manga. Especially considering the fact that there are now 70 chapters out that have not been animated. Anything after chapter 340 has not been animated. That includes the entire Succession contest, which, by my regard, is one of the best arcs in the Hunter x Hunter series. And depending on how it ends, it may be the best arc. Now, based on Togashi's work schedule, it looks like we're going to get 10 chapter batches relatively frequently, which is fantastic news. Now, I get it. Some of the newer chapters are a bit wordy and very convoluted. There's a lot of new characters, there's a lot of plot threads, and there's just a lot of things to think about in general. So that's the purpose of this video. It's to contextualize all the important events that are going on. So even for people who have read the manga multiple times, it's a nice refresher video. In fact, I come back to it myself from time to time. Now, not only are we going to summarize the events of the Chimera Ant Arc, the 13th Hunter Chairman Arc, and the Succession Arc, but I'm going to provide some of my own insights and analysis after each arc. For example, after each arc, I'm going to provide a 2-minute response in terms of what was my favorite fight, favorite character, favorite moments, and an overall score for the arc itself. And I'd really like to hear your favorite fights, favorite moments, and favorite characters in the comments. I think the Hunter x Hunter community is one of the best out there, and I really love when I get to talk to you guys on the YouTube comments. So put in your responses, and I'd love to respond to them. Now, we got a long video ahead of us, over 3.5 hours long, so I want to get into the meat of the video. But before that, I want to show you some merchandise that you might be interested in. The website is called TT Aesthetic. It provides women's clothing, men's clothing, shoes, accessories, and much more. It's got a wide array of anime merchandise that I'm sure you guys will love, including Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and even One Piece. They have a wide array of different styles, colors, and themes. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So I'm sure you're going to be able to find something that you love on this website. And if you use my discount card, which is in the description, you'll get to save a little bit of money for yourself. If you want to buy yourself something pretty cool, go to TT Aesthetic. But with that said, guys, let's get into the meat of the video and talk about Hunter x Hunter. This chapter starts off in a bizarre fashion, with an insect queen wanting to give birth to the king. Gon and Killua find out that Kite is in the country of Kakin, in the middle of the Asian continent. The other members of Kite's research team arrive and introduce themselves. Meanwhile, the insect queen continues to eat creatures for sustenance, but wants to find bigger prey. She commands her minions to capture more nutritious food for her. We then learn from Kites that Chimera ants absorb characteristics of creatures that they feed on. The queen then feeds on a couple of children, saying it must consume more of this type of creature. Soldier ants continue to find more prey for the queen, and when her appetite reaches its peak, they'll hunt down large prey for her. Now, for the queen to fully devote herself to a task, she's going to need 50 bodies a day. The servants then ask the queen for permission to name themselves, and the queen decides to allow this. Furthermore, she's going to name the king and 3 royal guards. Kite and the others arrive at the NGL border, a place that rejects modern technology, and a place Kite believes the Chimera ants reside. The group enters the area as Kite believes that they are close to finding out what they're looking for. Now, the Chimera ants are losing some of their grunts due to people fighting back. The ants then decide to use weapons for their own purposes to get back at the humans. Pokel's group then gets attacked by some ants, as he uses rainbow red bow at it. Now, not only does the ant catch the arrow, but it can see the nen surrounding Pokel's body. Pokel attempts to fight back, but is immobilized by Zazan's stinger. Ponzo escapes undetected, and writes a message for help and gives it to one of her bees. Kite receives the message, determining that Chimera ants in NGL is an unprecedented biohazard. A bird-like ant then approaches the 3. So Kite wants Gon and Killua to prove themselves by taking down the basic soldier ant, and with their combined efforts, they knock the bird away. But before they finish it off, Colt swoops him up. Though Kite is impressed with their efforts, they're going to have to give it their all if they're going to escape this hellish landscape. Now, Colt is shocked to find out that the ants act of their own free will, and are subsequently killing without regards for the queen's nourishment. Zito tells him to not worry about it, as long as they meet their quotas. Kite then discovers a hidden narcotics factory that NGL is using to produce D2, a popular drug. Inside the factory, a centaur-like ant uses humans as slaves, and he commands his subordinates to attack Kite's group. Killua's opponent proves to be quite crafty with her moves. The young Zoldyck is immune to her poison, and responds by killing her with a swipe to the face. Gon then uses his Scissors Jonkin attack to bisect the centipede. Kite finishes off the centipede with a gun, as we see the first glimpse of his Nen ability. Now Kite's Nen ability grants him a weapon based on a random roulette roll, and it can't go away until he uses it. The Chimera Ants are divided into 5 classes, and once a king is born, the classes will separate. Ramat heals up from his wounds and displays his impressive power. Unfortunately for Kite, Gon, and Killua, they get surrounded by a horde of Chimera Ants. Gon takes on Boro, an armadillo-like ant. Despite Boro's enhanced speed, Gon manages to grab onto him. "This is nothing compared to Razor's spike," says Gon. He then crushes the ant with his immense strength, killing him in short order. Kite uses his Nen ability to summon an enormous scythe. He then slices up everything in the area in one swing, creating a scene of utter devastation. Now the ants start looking for a rare human that was brought to the nest alive. As they talk, Pokal is seen hiding amongst a pile of human skulls and bones. Ramat then believes that he might surpass the king with his new powers. That is, until Pito emanates an aura beyond anything he's ever experienced. And because of this, he realizes that his role is to serve Pito. Pito then points out that there's a living body amongst the corpses, which is bad news for Pokal. We then find out that the queen consumes 250 meatballs every single day. Hagia spots Kite, realizing he's not strong enough to take him on. Pito then manipulates Pokal's brain to divulge all the info he knows about Nen. Pito then determines that she's a specialization type, as she orders her subordinates to cut Pokal up. Kite then warns Gon and Killua to get away, as Pito rips off his arm with lightning speed. Now Gon wants to fight back, but Killua wisely knocks him out as he begins to run away with him. And with this, Kite will now fight Pito, but he's not going to be fighting for victory. No, he's just going to be fighting to stall some time. And in this way, Gon and Killua can get away unscathed. Netero arrives with 2 unknown hunters, as Killua explains that they won't be able to win against Pito. Now Netero has unleashed 2 hunters in a nearby town, and if Gon and Killua can defeat them, they can help out with the Chimera Ants. Now when Gon resumes consciousness, he expresses his belief that Kite is still alive. Unfortunately, we see that Pito has Kite's severed head in her lap. While wandering the streets, they come across a person named Palm, and are instructed to have tea with her. She says that they have 1 month to defeat Knuckle and Shoot, Morel's apprentices, and if they do so, they'll gain access to NGL. Pito then unleashes a new ability to repair Kite, and it's a very ominous aura. Bisky is then called in by Palm to help the 2 boys train again. Now they must hold their Nen for 3 hours straight without any rest, and they've got to do this before they can move on to the next step. Now Palm wants to go to NGL at any cost, so if the boys fail in their quest, she won't be able to restrain herself. While Netero watches Pito from a distance, he wonders if she's stronger than him. Now their goal is to kill the queen, but reaching her location is beyond impossible without provoking a fight. Morel creates a large number of smoke rabbits to ascertain info about the ants. Poof, the second member of the Royal Guard, finally awakens and says that Yopi will awaken soon. Gon and Killua complete their training as they approach the hot-headed Knuckle. Gon prepares to do Jonkin Rock as Knuckle passes out onto the ground. They later have a meal as Knuckle says that they can challenge him as many times as they want, and that's because they'll never be able to defeat him in 20 days. Now inside this town was a man named Gyro, also known as the Shadow Dawn of the NGL. Now he got turned into an ant, but with his willpower, he was able to completely ignore the Queen's orders. In his younger years, Gyro was flogged and treated horribly by his father. Because of the cruelty he endured, he determined that the universe had no interest in him. Fed up with this treatment, he eventually killed his father, and discarded his human self when he became an ant. Now Gyro never met Gon in this town. Whether that remains fortunate or not remains to be seen until the day that they finally meet. Now this is a very weird break in the story, and something that hasn't been elaborated about in future chapters. It's speculated that Gyro may be the final antagonist of the story itself, given that Togashi hyped him up so much and he was so mysterious and vague. But it remains to be seen. I mean, we still have a large arc in front of us, so, we'll see what happens in the future. Afterwards, Knuckle pounds the 2 in their sparring match. The 2 continue training, as Bisky gets freaked out by Palm's level of bloodlust. Nav uses his ability, Hide and Seek, to send the ants to another dimension, where Netero dispatches of them with ease. Gon fights Knuckle once more, but Knuckle still proves to be too fast for him. He warns Gon that he will only get stronger as the fight goes on. Now the ants decide to barricade themselves in the fortress, as Netero decides to wait for the apprentices to show up for reinforcement. Now Knuckle identifies two weaknesses with Gon's Jonkin technique. For one, it takes too long to charge, and for two, it's too risky. Knuckle continues perfectly reading the flow of aura, as Gon realizes that he's being trained by Knuckle in the sparring match. Gon uses Jonkin as a fake to keep Knuckle off balance, and it's working. Killua realizes that Gon is growing at a frightening pace, and he's doing this right in the middle of the battle. Unfortunately, Gon is still far from being a worthy opponent. Yet, that doesn't stop him from preparing his rock. He uses an emission attack as a distraction, as he sneaks up behind Knuckle to deliver the rock. Unfortunately, he runs out of aura, and he can't do anything about it. Killua then says that Gon will fight again tomorrow, but if Knuckle loses without using his full strength, Killua will never forgive him. Shoot then finally reveals himself, and says that he'll fight Killua tomorrow. Bisky then trains with Killua, and says that his weakness is that he gives up too quickly, and it could eventually cost Gon his life. Now if he can't beat Shoot tomorrow, he must leave Gon's side. Now the final battle begins, with the winning side going to NGL to help out with the ants. Knuckle attaches Hakaware to Gon, an interest Nen ability that loans Nen to the recipient, but it comes at a cost. The interest increases by 10% every 10 seconds, and if Gon doesn't repay the interest quickly, he'll go bankrupt. Basically meaning he'll lose all access to Nen for a month. He'll be in a state of Zetsu. Knuckle determines Gon's maximum aura to be 21,500. So with the interest piling up, Gon has limited time before he goes bankrupt. In fact, if you do the math, it's 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Togashi, you dog. But anyway, after this amount of time, the match will be over for Gon, and he'll be in a state of Zetsu for 30 days. Gon attacks with a flurry of blows, but because he can't pay the full debt back in full, Knuckle will remain unharmed. Shoot begins his battle with Killua by attacking with floating hands. He uses electric shock on Killua's left eye, making Killua think he can't win. Killua remembers his brother's words as he looks to be at a complete loss. Meanwhile, the Chimera Ant King punches his way out of his mother's womb. "I am hungry. Prepare my meal," says the king. He kills numerous grunts before the royal guard offers up their services to him. Colt begs for Pito to save the queen, but Pito lives to serve the king and the king alone and says that the queen is now useless. Now the meal is not to the king's liking, as he craves prey with Nen abilities. Colt then surrenders to Navar Morel, begging for them to save the queen. He also says that the king and the royal guard are demons. The king then searches for suitable food, while the rest of the ants decide to do what they want from now on. Colt then informs Navar Morel about the hierarchical structure of the ants, as they decide to take him to Netero. With Gon and Killua losing their match, Gon begs for Knuckle to save Kite. He then bemoans his own weakness, and how painful that feels. Netero wants to gauge his aura next to the king, and so he gives Colt a little display of his power. But unfortunately, Colt says that he'll be killed by one of the royal guards first. To which Netero says, "To think that I'd be challenged by a stronger opponent at this age. My blood is boiling." While doctors operate on the queen to save her life, she says that the king's name is Meruem, which means the light that shines on everything. The doctors try their best, but unfortunately the queen's time is up. The group then notices a small child that came out from the queen, and it turns out to be the twin of Meruem, and Colt decides to take care of the child and do everything in his power to protect it. Squadron leaders go their separate ways, as Chitu crosses NGL's border and kills humans working at the entrance. They each want to become their own king, as Meruem arrives at the Republic of East Goruto. Meruem runs into some rare prey that can use some Nen, as he gets super excited. By consuming Nen users, he can make their power his own, meaning the more he eats, the stronger he becomes, which is truly terrifying. The leader is taken out as Meruem looks at a place that shall become his meat garden. Elsewhere, Palm blames Killua and Gon for not being able to enter NGL. After agreeing to go on a date with Palm, Gon hears word from Knuckle that they were able to locate Kite. Because of Knuckle's ability, Gon can't use Nen for a month, which means that Killua will have to protect him in that time. Elsewhere, Chitu uses his incredible speed to mess with some police officers. Killua secretly watches Gon while he's on a date with Palm, to make sure that nothing happens to him. Ramatz then reveals himself to Killua. Dead set on achieving his revenge for what they did to him earlier, Ramatz's power boost puts Killua at a disadvantage, but the boy must protect his friend at all cost. That being said, the voice in his head urges him to run away. He then determines that Illumi stuck a device in his head that manipulated his approach towards battle. And with this restriction gone, Killua's terrifying aura reveals itself, as he rips Ramat's head clear from its shoulders. Killua takes Gon away from Palm as the crazed woman vows to chase him down to the ends of the earth. Nav reminds Palm that her blood is a precious resource, as he tells her to only use it for him. Knuckle then attacks Cheetu as he runs by. Morel joins in on the battle, but Cheetu displays his impressive speed in dodging. While fighting Knuckle and Morel, Cheetu is surprised by how quickly they caught on to his movements, and how they made the appropriate adjustments. Morel creates a smokescreen, as Knuckle looks to take advantage of the limited visibility. Knuckle uses Hakaware on Cheetu, as the two hunters decide to split off. Cheetu, unaware of what's going on, attempts to outrun APR. Now the interest will stop accumulating if he gets too far away from Knuckle, but it won't go away. Realizing he can't outrun this Nen ability, Cheetu says he'll need to find another form of strength besides speed. Gon encounters Kaito, but it seems that his entire personality was changed/erased. In fact, he was probably being used to train the other soldier ants. Gon endures the punishment from Kite as he goes in to embrace him. "I'm sorry, Kite. It's all our fault. You can rest a little. Leave everything to us," says Gon. We then see Kite's body being manipulated by some unknown Nen ability. Gon then declares he's going to deal with the ones responsible for desecrating Kite's body. Supreme Chancellor Diego of East Goruto is then shown being manipulated through the mysterious Nen ability. Now Netero wants Nav and Morel to separate the royal guards from the king, and in this way he can fight Meruem all by himself. With Gon's Nen abilities back in full force, Morel wants to see the full brunt of his power, and after doing so, he's impressed by what he sees. And with this, Nav, Morel, Knuckle, Shoot, Gon, Killua, and Netero are ready to implement their plan. Phantom Troop members, Shellnark, Finks, Phaeton, Bono, Shizuku, and Kaluto then arrive in Meteor City, only to find out it was taken over by Chimera Ants. Specifically, it was taken over by Zazan, and she has the ability to transform people into pseudo-ants. "With my queen shot, I will rule the world." The spiders decide to split up and have a race towards killing the queen first. Bono belongs to a tribe of people that transform Melody into battle strength. The other spiders prepare themselves for their respective battles, as Phaeton finds himself paired up against Zazan, the queen. Kaluto unleashes an ability called Snake Dance to cut off the left arm of one of the ants. Shellnark attempts to manipulate his foe, but finds out there's another ant controlling him already. Phaeton distracts Zazan with an umbrella to attack her with a sword, but she manages to see through his ploy. Bono uses Battle Cantabile Jupiter to crush the ants like a bug. Kaluto also makes quick work of his prey. Shellnark stabs himself with his own antenna, and puts himself on autopilot to kill his prey. Shizuku then takes off her own clothes and vacuums the silk away to avoid getting caught in a spider's web. She then sets her sights on sucking away every last drop of his blood, and after 29 bleeding lacerations, the ant officially goes down. Phaeton's moves and speed are beyond Kaluto's imagination, making him realize that he's still got a lot of work to do. Zazan's tough exterior is pierced as she goes into a furious frenzy. Her body then goes through a monstrous transformation as she seizes the advantage. Phaeton's left arm breaks in the midst of the fight. He then unleashes a new mysterious piece of armor. He then transmutates his aura into a scorching heat, and its power is determined by the amount of pain and injuries that was inflicted upon him in the battle. And with this, he burns Zazan to a crisp. Now with the spiders neutralizing the ants' threat in Meteor City, there's only 9 days left until the sorting takes place. Killua determines that if the ants can convert 1% of the population of East Goruto into soldiers, they'll have 50,000 ant soldiers. Now, it will be best for them to lay low for now, and Killua informs Gon that it will be easier if he does this alone. Now, Knuckle is deeply troubled by all the dead people, but Shoot reminds him that billions will die if they don't stick to the plan and separate the royal guard from the king. A Chimera Ant snake then ambushes Gon and grabs onto his body. Gon easily punches him out and wraps his body around a tree like a knot. Unfortunately, an owl and a bat Chimera Ant descend from the sky to block his path. The owl distracts Gon right before the bat attacks. Gon attempts to anticipate their movements, but the bat uses echolocation to avoid his strike. Gon then lures the bat in as he proceeds to scream in its ear to disrupt its echolocation. He uses paper to track her down, but a gorilla ant deflects it with a rock at the last moment. The bat then uses secret dissonance to create a nauseating effect. Their superb teamwork is keeping him off guard, so he'll need to break them apart. Gon then uses a tree to create a gigantic gust of wind aimed at the bat, knocking her into a jagged rock face. The final ant attempts to run away, but Gon uses his Jonkin rock to knock him back to NGL. While this is going on, Killua helps some villagers, and warns them about the brainwashed soldiers coming to kill their friends and families. Poof and Pito discuss the bizarre actions of Killua while Poof plays some music. Pito then commands Liel, Flutter, and Hina to deal with the person messing with the puppets. Diego, the puppet leader, then places all of East Goruto under a martial law. They will now isolate the entire country and perform the selection. Pito wants Liel to head north to deal with the troublesome Killua. Now this is the current arrangement of the major players, as Gon gets chased by someone. Now Liel will get rid of APR if Cheeto heads towards the castle and offers his loyalty to the king. Killua gets attacked by several ants in the treetops, but he easily takes them out. The Bombardier Beetle uses tear gas on Killua, but Killua doesn't want to show off his abilities too soon, so he decides to run away. A sniper starts shooting fleas at Killua in rapid succession. Killua chooses not to dodge the next flea bullet so that he can determine the shooter's location. Now Killua goes for the killing blows straight away, but the ant pulls him into an underground lake. Now Akago's true form is revealed to be an octopus, as Killua demands that he betray his own comrades to spare his life. Ilkago hesitates as the fish creatures start attacking Killua. A target then manifests on his body, as he cannot see the attacker. Now the Ortho siblings are using a Nen ability called Darts Be Darts. They throw darts at a board, and it manifests on the target's body as fish-like darts. But it doesn't manifest until like the very last second, so it's almost impossible to dodge. The darts continue tearing up Killua's body, as the last one goes straight through his head. They go to check in on him, but he slices off their heads in the process. Now it turns out that he grabbed the dart the second it materialized into the physical plane, just before it hit his brain. In fact, he used electrical signals to manipulate his left hand to grab the dart as soon as it materialized. So literally, he was moving faster than reaction time. Unfortunately, Killua's body stops responding, as he loses authority over his physical movements. Now Akago was touched that Killua considered him a friend, so he decides to help him out. Gon then meets up with Meloron, an ant who can hide his presence while holding his breath. Now Meloron wants to take down the king and is willing to work with Gon to make it happen. Because no one knows about Meloron's ability, it can make him invincible if used properly. In preparation for his upcoming battle, Netero is sharpening his skills to the utmost by meditating. Elsewhere, Meruem plays the best players in chess and shogi, and he easily demolishes them in no time flat. Now last up is a game called Gunji, a board game originating in East Goruto. A blind girl who's considered best at the game then walks in to play him. She beats the king with relative ease, but the king feels he'll defeat her in the next 4 matches. Morel uses Deep Purple to create 50 smoke troopers. Chitu then leaps to the roof, ready to have his rematch with his improved abilities. The two are transported to a savannah as Chitu prepares for the game of tag. Now Morel cannot escape or break the hourglass. The only way out is to catch Chitu. So he decides to take a nap, claiming that Chitu is misunderstanding his ability. Meanwhile, Komugi continues to outplay Meruem from a strategic level, leaving the king befuddled by her strange moves. On the palace grounds, Welfin and Bloster walk past some trees covered with 5,000 cocoons. Nav's hide-and-seek has 4 levels. Within these 4 levels is 21 room spaces that are isolated and extremely complex. Only he has the ability to connect the exit to any location he desires. Chitu attempts to provoke Morel into movement, but the seasoned hunter is content with laying back and relaxing. Now Meruem's new strategy seems to have disrupted Komugi's flow, giving him a new sense of confidence. Nevertheless, Komugi wins this match rather easily. It turns out that Meruem employed a tactic that she discovered 10 years ago, but an effective countermeasure has already been devised, making this variation irrelevant. Now while Morel was quote-unquote sleeping, he placed a rope around Chitu with his smoke. Being completely cornered, Chitu develops a new ability, a bowgun and a claw. Chitu then stabs Morel in the chest, but it turns out that this was a fake. It was merely made out of smoke. And with this, the real Morel touches Chitu. Chitu takes off for now as Morel meets up with Nav. Now Liel has an ability known as Rental Pod, and it allows him to borrow someone else's Nen ability. He then borrows Flutter's ability to carry out his mission. Meruem is anxious and frustrated with his play, but at the same time, he's enjoying his matches with Komugi. The two decide to make a bet, and if Komugi loses, she will forfeit her life to Meruem. Upon hearing this rationale, Meruem decides to rip off his left arm as an apology apology to her. However, Komogi will not play until his wound is treated, and with this, Meruem calls in Pito. Pito's puppets disappear as Nav wants to make an escape as close to the palace grounds as possible. Liol spies on the two with Flutter's dragonflies, as he decides to set his sights on Morel. Pito then uses Dr. Blight to repair Meruem's left arm. With Pito's Nen gone, Nav makes his way towards the perimeter. Now the associated entrances and exits are as follows. Palm then finds a way to sneak into the palace as a secretary for Bezef, the man who runs East Gorto behind the scenes. Nav creates the first exit as he sees cocoons of people that will be turned into soldiers. He then takes out an ant inside the palace grounds, as he wonders if he was seen. He then senses a terrifying aura emitting from Pito, and this is when he realizes that this is as far as he goes. After escaping the palace, Nav shudders from Pito's aura, and wonders why Gon and Killua are so eager to face off against her, when he's absolutely terrified out of his mind. Now Palm has successfully made her way into East Gorto, and she remains focused on carrying out her vital mission. Morel then encounters Liel in a shelter used for emergencies. Liel summons a big wave that swallows Morel's smoke in one gulp. Morel realizes that this is his friend's ability, as he creates a boat out of smoke. Liel then traps him within a whirlpool and looks to harpoon him, but Morel uses his breath like a jet engine to escape. Liel then uses a big wave with the intention of drowning him within the church. While looking for Morel, multiple bubbles emerge from the water in different spots. Liel then starts to feel like he's been poisoned as he falls into the water. Now it turns out that Morel did poison him, but by a very clever method. He inhaled all the air in the chamber and increased the CO2 by breathing, leaving Liel completely helpless. I mean, it's kind of brilliant when you think about it. Now Killua was sleeping in an underground hospital for 2 days. Ilkalgo took him here and wants him to rest up some more, but Killua can't waste any more time, as he's ready to go help out Gon. And what's more, he wants Ilkalgo to help him out too. Komogi continues to defeat the king, as Meruem wants her to rest up for a little bit. Poof notices a change in the king because of Komogi, and thusly determines she's dangerous. He decides against killing her, and says that he will die of his own accord once the king rules over the world. Gon's group still has 2 days as they wonder if Palm will contact them. Although Poof thought Meruem would win by now, it appears Komogi is evolving her game as well. Gon's group hopes to throw off the ants with their position, at which point they'll use Nav's portal to arrive inside the palace. Komogi's play only gets sharper as Meruem enjoys the back and forth. After requesting a small break, Komogi asks the king what his name is. After a little bit of time, he asks his royal guards what his name is, and they implore him to choose his own name. Meruem contemplates his past actions, as he seems to hold some empathy for humans he killed. However, a menacing glare comes across his face, as he says that he's the king. "Violence is the strongest power in this world," says Meruem. He's had his fun for now, and with the selection tomorrow, it's time to eliminate Komogi for good. Nevertheless, when he sees her covered in blood and crying, he can't help but hesitate. Through deductive reasoning, Killua determines that the king injured himself, and Pito released her N to heal him. Now the selection will start in 10 hours, which means it's go time. Nav, while terrified of Pito, will watch for any changes at the palace while the group gets ready inside. Meruem instructs Pito to watch over Komogi and eliminate any threats. Nav monitors the ongoing situation as he notices that Poof is spreading his wings in the distance, and it turns out that these scales are used to control the citizens through a hypnotic-like effect. Now Gon vows to avenge Kite for defeating the one responsible for his demise, that being Pito. By helping out the hunters, Ilkalgo will be reborn. He thusly wants to carry out his mission for Killua, his new friend. Meruem reminds himself that he's the king, but he wonders who he truly is and for what reason was he born. He's truly having an introspective moment here. The group determines that they'll all charge in as close to the central staircase as they can. Now Welfin decides to help Bezef in finding a runaway woman. Komogi waits for Meruem as she wonders why he didn't tell her his name. Meruem continues to ponder his existence, as he concludes that he'll slowly be bored to death. Meruem becomes irritated with Pito's N, wanting her to focus it outside the palace from now on. Now Poof worries about the king's internal psychology. In fact, it's causing him much anxiety and dread. Morel speculates that the king is being left alone because he may be reproducing with a woman, possibly even Palm. Yopi warns Welfin not to go to the second floor, as Welfin wonders how the intruder escaped. Welfin tells Bezif about the intruder, and how he wants to blow up the palace, although he embellished this last part. Now he's doing all this because he wants to become the one ruling things behind the scenes. He wants to become the king behind the scenes, if you will. Morel's group gets ready to enter the palace, as two men leap from a bird down to East Goruto. Pito uses her animal instincts to determine the position of the two mysterious people descending downwards. Pito and Poof notice a dragon flying through the sky, with Netero and Zeno riding on top of it. Pito turned off her end to prepare an attack, as the dragon scattered into smaller dragons. At the same time, Morel and the others prepare for their assault. Pito goes into full offensive mode, but it seems that Netero has anticipated this. According to Zeno, Netero is the only one to fight his grandpa and survive the battle. His most deadly technique is the 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva. In real time, Netero uses his ability to swiftly attack Pito. At 46 years old, Netero vowed to perform 10,000 straight punches a day to show his gratitude towards martial arts. Capable of creating sonic booms with his fist, Netero left other martial artists flabbergasted by his skill. In the now, Pito gets knocked away from the palace, as the Nen dragons rain upon the palace itself. While this happens, Gon's group encounters Yopi on the staircase. Confused by the hunter's sudden appearance, Yopi vows to protect the king with his life. While everyone froze for a moment, Gon made his way forward without delay. Shoot then mentally thanks Gon for breaking him out of his cage of fear. "I will survive this so I can thank you," says Shoot. With Meloron keeping Knuckle invisible, Knuckle uses Hackaware on Yopi. With Meloron's God Accomplice activated, Yopi couldn't see APR attached to him. Unfortunately, Knuckle determined that Yopi's power was unlimited, perhaps 10 times stronger than Morel's. Yopi then smashes the floor with absolute devastation. Pito realizes that the two assassins are after the king, so she crouches down to leap into action. She sensed that the king was unguarded, as she saw him holding on to the now injured Komugi. Though Netero and Zeno were here to assassinate him, they remained silent while the king gingerly held Komugi. Meruem commands Pito to heal Komugi, as Netero and Zeno continue to respectfully wait on the sidelines. Pito summons Dr. Blythe to heal Komugi, as the two old hunters let their guard down. And in this split second, Meruem walks right past them. And he does this with absolute calmness and confidence. And it was at this point that the two masters realized that they were dealing with some monster, a monster beyond their comprehension. Morel uses his weapon as a distraction, as Knuckle goes in for another Hackaware punch. Despite getting injured, Shoot attacks Yopi with a flurry of blows, to allow the others to advance forward. With this distraction, Morel makes his way towards Poof, as Gon and Killua focus on finding Pito. Killua then surprisingly deviates from his task, to kill two ants who were after Akago. Poof goes into a state of fanatical delirium, as Morel surrounds him with smoky jail. Unable to escape, Poof is forced to fight his way out. Gon then sees Meruem, Netero, and Zeno, as Netero points him towards Pito's location. The king before their eyes, the moment of confrontation. Zeno draws upon his dragon's head as Gon and Killua head towards Pito. Shoot manages to steal one of the eyes from Yopi's shoulder, preventing him from going all out. Knuckle begs for Shoot to bear through the pain, as all he can do is watch from the sidelines. 10 seconds have gone by since the interest has accrued. A fact that is absolutely agonizing for Knuckle, because it seemed like an eternity for him, but it's only been 10 seconds. Yopi then accidentally nicks Knuckle, knocking the interest down. Meloron catches his breath for a bit as Yopi notices that APR is on his body. He continues to batter Shoot as the hunter is hanging on by a thread. To save his friend, Knuckle decides to reveal himself to Yopi. Now Poof can analyze emotional patterns to read a person's thoughts. He then enters a cocoon, as Morel is pleased by this development. Ilkago focuses his efforts on saving Palm, as Welfin is hot on his tail. Zeno tells Killua that his job is done, as Gon prepares himself for Pito. "Do you remember me? My name is Gon Freaks. I came to see you, to restore Kite." Now Pito cannot use her Nen right now as a shield, since she's solely focused on healing Komugi. Gon demands that she fight, but Pito turns her palm upwards in a sign of submission. Killua understands perfectly well that this girl is important to the king, and it's the reason why he ripped his own arm off. Now Pito will do anything he wants, but for now she must focus on Komugi. Gon, however, cannot reconcile his inner turmoil, because to him, she is a creature that is so vile, and yet at the same time, she's trying to save someone else's life. Killua wants Gon to exercise patience, but Gon is furious at the ants for what they have done. In a surprising turn of events, Pito breaks her left arm, and offers to break the other one, along with her legs, to appease Gon. Gon then smashes onto the floor in a fit of rage, wondering why she should get saved when Kite was brutally murdered. Gon will give her 1 hour to stabilize Komugi, after which she will travel to heal Kite. Melaron prays for Shoot to be alright, as he goes to assist the others. He then runs into Welfin and runs behind a wall. Welfin detects his presence and prepares Eggman on your face, Missile Man, for a potential battle. Unfortunately for him, Melaron manages to escape and makes it to Killua's location. Knuckle attempts to draw Yoppie away from Shoot, but Yoppie will not leave his post on guarding the staircase. Knuckle finds Shoot still alive, meaning Yoppie did not consider him a threat whatsoever. Knuckles thusly wants to save their pride by fighting Yoppie head-on. Poof remains within the cocoon as Knuckle approaches Yoppie with the intention of fighting him. Yoppie goes through a terrifying metamorphosis, as he completely wrecks shop. If Yoppie could control this power without being consumed by rage, he could use it to better serve the king. Cheetu wants to test his new ability on Zeno, but Zeno isn't in the mood right now. Silva then comes crashing down from the sky to one-shot Cheetu in an explosive blast. Unbeknownst to Morel, tiny, imperceptible bugs were escaping from the smoky jail. Ilkago discovers a note from Palm that suggests that she may be dead already. Blaster determines that Hagia is an imposter, and so destroys him with no hesitation. Turns out Ilkago, who is dressed up as Hagia, escaped the blast, and will now have to tread carefully from now on. If Knuckle can force Yoppie to explode again, the interest will accumulate to the point that he may go bankrupt. Yoppie gives the impression that he's raging out again, but he manages to keep his cool, and has perfectly lured in Knuckle to his trap. Knuckle looks to be done for, but then Killua uses Thunderbolt to disrupt Yoppie. Now this gives Knuckle the perfect opportunity to land another punch. With Yoppie paralyzed, Knuckle takes this opportunity to wail on him. Yoppie wonders how he missed that bolt of lightning, as an enraged Killua approaches him. Killua activates Godspeed, a Nen ability that electrifies his entire body, allowing him to transcend his physical potential. Yoppie cannot react to Killua's moves, but it's not long before he uses up all his power. Luckily for Killua, Melaron touches his body so that he can escape unharmed. Ilkago decides he'll open a round on Blaster to eliminate him. Blaster sees through all of Ilkago's deceptions, and determines that he's holding up in the security room. Ilkago then enters a tank, ready to have a showdown with Blaster. He uses the tank to block off the elevator and squeezes his way in. Sleeping gas knocks Blaster out, so Ilkago can now get ready for the finishing blow. Unfortunately, he doesn't possess the courage to finish the job. Morel finally determines that Poof escaped the smoky jail. Poof then scatters into superfine particles. And because Morel deviated from his plan, he was able to escape earlier than expected. Morel begins his assault on Poof, but the Royal Guard member tricks him and grabs his pipe in the process. And without his pipe, he's basically defenseless, as he now stares down the enraged Yoppie. He uses deep purple smoke to make several knuckles, as Yoppie wants to kill the real one. Hina helps out Bazef, but she's doing this on the condition that he will reward her. When Yoppie determines the real Knuckle, he'll be sure to finish him off. However, it turns out the real one is not here. He then shows up when Morel is in danger of losing his life. After getting rid of Morel's pipe, Poof divides himself into millions of clones, and he's going to do this to evaluate the situation at the palace. If Morel stuck to the original plan, he could have easily defeated Poof. That being said, Morel's cunningness saved his comrades from certain doom. We then see Shoot receiving medical care for all his wounds, and he seems to be out of it. Gon continues staring down Pito as Pito tells Poof not to come any closer. Poof decides to head elsewhere as Gon commands him to stay. He thusly wants Pito to tell him where the king is in a subtle fashion. That way they can avoid suspicion. Yoppie uses his rage to transform into a grotesque centaur-like being. The ecstasy he experiences is beyond compare, but unfortunately for him, APR ensures that he'll lose his Nen abilities in about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Elsewhere, Meruem determines that Netero is worthy of saving, and he's willing to let him live if he backs down. Poof determines the location of Meruem, and he splits off 6/7 of his body to go after him. Now Meruem proposes to destroy inequality, and to create a society so equal that the old ways will all be forgotten. Netero sees that Meruem is wavering between ant and human, a very dangerous combination, and he even states that those two sides are incompatible. I must make this fast, before my heart is swayed, thinks Netero. He then activates 100 type of Guanyin Bodhisattva firsthand. Yoppie finishes off all the puppets as Morel is at his physical limit. Yoppie commends Morel on a job well done, as he prepares for the final blow. Just then, Morel vanishes into thin air, and although he's invisible thanks to Melaron, Yoppie can see the blood trail from his body. To save Morel, Knuckle will have to release APR from Yoppie's body, but Morel reminds him that the whole battle would have been for nothing if he does so. Unfortunately, Knuckle does just that. He releases APR and calls out for a fight with Yopi. That being said, Yopi has matured in this battle, and he finds no reason to murder them right here and now. He just wants to get back to his king's side. Nav arrives in a distressed state, as he says that the king can make the ants into demon spawn if he wants to. He takes Morel to safety, as Knuckle and Meloron decide to stay back. Poof and Yopi meet up and decide to go to the king's side. Despite Netero landing a clean hit on Meruem, the king remains resolute in talking things out. Netero doesn't back down, but Meruem has had enough of his antics. Wake up. The only things I will exchange with you are words. To stimulate the king into fighting, Netero offers to tell him his name, if he's able to defeat him. And he's got to do it using non-lethal methods. And with this, Meruem prepares himself for non-lethal combat. Netero unleashes his Bodhisattva, as he's yearned for an opportunity to go all out to his heart's content. This is your tomb, announces Netero as he whacks Meruem ferociously. I am very thankful. Thankful for everything that has led me to this point. That led me to you. Meruem could barely follow Netero's afterimage, as he now has complete admiration for his enemy. Meruem determines that Netero spent 10 years, possibly more, dedicating himself to this single purpose. He then treats the fight as a game of Gunji, slowly learning his opponent's moves and tendencies. Threading this needle will be excruciatingly difficult, but it's the kind of challenge that Meruem thrives in. The both of them are rather enjoying themselves in this battle of wits. Netero is confident that he can come out on top, especially with his zero hand in reserve. Inside the palace, Killua sees that Palm has been completely transformed by the ants. Palm recognizes Killua and wonders if Gon would hate what she's become. Killua refuses to tell Palm where Gon is, so she unleashes her rage in full with the intent on killing Killua. Palm proves to be quite formidable in her offensive assault. Knuckle then approaches Poof and tells him to step outside. Palm's ability, Black Widow, turns her hair into a weapon, and the shape changes based on her emotions. Killua takes a direct hit from her, realizing that she's quite strong. Killua begs for Palm to see Gon since he was worried about her, yet he has no intention of them meeting right now. Now it turns out that Pito made Palm into her first experimental soldier, and thusly destroyed the connection between her memories and her emotions. Palm fights against this nonetheless, and reclaims her autonomy. Poof wants to use his ability to create new soldiers, and to build a kingdom for the king and himself. Poof then tells Knuckle that he's a segment of the whole, but Gon wants him to prove that fact. Poof then disperses, and says he'll wait for Knuckle at the front entrance. Gon tells Pito to move up the deadline by 10 minutes, as the ant starts to feel uneasy about Gon's presence. She then realizes that Gon is very dangerous, and she must kill him at all cost, for the king's sake. Ilkago continues looking for Palm, as Welfin begins to interrogate him. Ilkago then turns around and starts to fire away. Black centipedes appear inside of Ilkago, and it's because he disobeyed Welfin. If he continues to do so, he's gonna die, but he doesn't care about this right now. Welfin then remembers that Gyro saved him as a human, and he wishes that he could see him again. Meruem takes Netero's right leg and implores him to reveal his name. To stop the bleeding, Netero pinches off his own leg, but Meruem knows his patterns and will take his left arm next. Netero's resolve heightens as the combatants go through an exchange of more than 1,000 punches. And like he predicted, Meruem takes his left arm. Netero prepares his zero hand, forming his aura into a light and firing with a merciless roar. Despite exhausting the limits of his Nen, it still wasn't sufficient in killing Meruem. Now Meruem will provide a special preserve for humans in his new world. I am not alone. Do not underestimate humans, Meruem, says Netero. Meruem, king of ants. You have no idea, do you? The bottomless malice within the human heart. Upon hearing this, Meruem experiences fear for the first time. A man who should be on his deathbed, a man who has no more Nen left, is speaking so confidently. What is the source of this bravado? Netero then uses his fingers to stop his own heart, to detonate the miniature rose, which is a weapon of mass destruction that has a similar effect to a nuclear bomb. With humans being capable of such destruction, were they really so different from ants? Distraught by the king's apparent death, Poof reveals his true nature to Knuckle. Poof and Yopi turn completely into ants, as they now want to exterminate every last human. Yopi finds Meruem and cradles his charred body, as the king hangs on by a thread. Poof then decides to allow the king to consume him so that he may be revitalized. And now that he's tasted this, he won't ever be able to eat anything else. The two feed the king while feeling extreme states of ecstasy. From now on, you may call me Meruem, Killua tells Okago that Gon wished to fight Pito by himself. Knuckle wants to fight on, as the others all agree. With the surgery done, Gon wants to head towards Kite. Now Pito has a request, but Gon says he'll kill Komugi if she speaks out of line. Knuckle will watch over Komugi as a hostage while Gon and Pito visit Kite. Now Meruem has made a full recovery. In fact, he's stronger than ever before. That being said, he is suffering from short-term memory loss. So with this new opportunity, Poof wants to eliminate Komugi. Meruem sprouts some wings and rushes off to the palace. And the reason that he's doing this is because it possesses the answer that he seeks. Poof looks to eliminate Komugi as Knuckle attaches Hakaware to him. APR shows up on Poof's other body as the others realize that the king is still alive. Meruem wants no more secrets between them, as Poof feels overwhelming guilt for what he's about to do. Poof, nevertheless, relentlessly searches out Komugi, as Killua uses Meleron's body to escape with her. Poof locates them as Killua activates Godspeed to keep her away from them. However, it doesn't take long for Killua to realize that Poof is attempting to harm Komugi. Killua creates a circle and burns off Poof's face with electricity. Poof then shows Meruem the humans that he'll rule over in his new kingdom. Now Meruem returns to the palace as this is the current arrangement of all the major players. Gon and Pito enter the mansion, and the former directs her to Kite's location. Pito receives a call from Welfin that Komugi is safe. However, it turns out that Poof reconfigured his cells to alter his voice box, and he made it sound like he was Komugi, tricking Pito so that she would kill Gon. Pito inquires about Gon's name as she reveals that Kite is already dead. Tears stream down Gon's face as he remembers his brief time with Kite. A million thoughts then race through his mind as he tries to process what's going on. Pito then uses Dr. Blythe to repair her own arm. Killua then hears what's happening from Palm, so he decides to hand over Komugi as he races off towards Gon's location. "Forgive me, but I have to kill you for the king," says Pito. "That's it. I don't care if this is the end. I'll use everything I have," says Gon. And with this, he begins to go through a new transformation. Pito summons Terpsi Chora, since she's afraid that Gon might be able to harm the king. Gon then leads Pito outside the mansion so that they can fight more formally. She then attempts a sneak attack, but Gon destroys her with a kick. While Gon batters her around, we learn that he sacrificed his life energy to make this happen. And in fact, he'll never be able to use Nen again after this fight. Killua reaches Gon's location, but he's greeted by an unfamiliar silhouette pounding his fist into a now-dead Pito. "I made sure to finish him off, just like you taught me to," says Gon. Killua then wonders what kind of price he paid to attain this aura. Pito's aura is amplified through death, allowing Terpsi Chora to remove Gon's right arm. Gon proceeds to beat her down with his severed arm, and he performs an explosive rock to put her to sleep, permanently. Killua then implores him to stop, but Gon cannot help himself. Meruem walks through the palace, realizing that something is missing, but he doesn't know what. He remembers Pito vaguely and recalls that she was doing something very important for him. He then displays his overwhelming aura, shocking everyone in the vicinity. Meruem knocks out Knuckle with blistering speed, and does the same thing to Meleron. Poof proposes a contest with Meruem, in which he'll look for Pito, while the king is looking for the intruders. Meruem agrees to this, but if they lose, they'll reveal everything that they're hiding from him. The contest begins with Poof and Yopi taking their predetermined head start. Okago hides Komugi in Bezef's room, and instructs Welfin to tell Meruem that the girl is in an underground warehouse. We then find out that Welfin and Okago knew each other prior to them becoming ants. With Poof giving 6/7 of his body to the king, his powers are greatly diminished. Though he has no proof, Okago senses that Gyro is still alive. Welfin tells Yopi about the exchange of hostages for the girl in the warehouse. He then takes an offensive stance, realizing that the ants are the true enemy. Now upon seeing the Gunji piece, Meruem realizes that he was playing against someone whom he has to beat. Poof fails to find Pito as he finds Yopi dead on the ground. Palm tells Okago that Komugi is a double-edged sword that are tearing the ants apart. She then suggests that they hide Komugi until the king is dead. "In a matter of hours, the king will die," declares Palm. They hide Komugi away in a box in the storehouse. Now, as it turns out, humans are pretty terrible creatures, as we find out that the rose was poisonous. There was nothing like it. The ultimate, most inhumane weapon ever created. Meruem's N acts as an X-ray to reveal all the hidden secrets in the palace. Welfin explains that Yopi just dropped dead, as Meruem can sense all his thoughts and emotions. He questions Welfin further, as Poof breaks down from the pressure. Meruem demands an answer from him, and if he doesn't please him, he'll pay with his life. "I've got no words to say," says Poof, since they're still in the middle of their contest. Of course, this is horrible news for Welfin. The stress makes Welfin's features age as if 100 years pass by. In this stressful moment, all he can mutter is one word: Komugi. And with this, a deluge of memories fill Meruem's mind. Because he's connected, Poof realizes how deeply Meruem cares for her. Meruem thanks Welfin for stimulating his memories, as Welfin says that Gyro is the only man whom he'll call king. "I hope you see him, and if possible, live a human life," replies Meruem. He then uses his N as particles to locate Palm with extreme precision. He expresses his one wish to her, to see Komugi. That is the only thing that he desires right now. Palm has a hard time believing him, but Meruem will go to any lengths to see his dear Komugi. Palm decides to allow it, but she wishes to watch Meruem's final moments with her, and he has no qualms with this. Poof is then seen dead outside the palace, succumbing to the same poisoning. Meruem sets up the board and wakes up Komugi to play a game with him. Sometime later, Welfin and Blaster wish each other luck as they decide to part ways. Welfin, Hina, and Bezef are heading off to Meteor City in search of Gyro. Blaster takes Reina to her village, where her mother immediately hugs her. Now Blaster wants to leave the village since he's not into all the sentimental stuff, but Reina asks him to join them for dinner, and he decides to stay. News spreads about the happenings in NGL as Diego, the supreme leader of East Goratoa, reads a book on a farm. The Hunter Association is waiting on Palm to verify Meruem's death. We then see Beans open up a safe to grab a disc, as he gives thanks to Netero for a job well done. Now Gon is in critical condition after what happened to him. Killua feels betrayed by him and wants him to apologize for not waiting to fight Pito together. He then takes it upon himself to save Gon. Colt then informs Morel that Reina, Meruem's twin sister, keeps calling herself Kite. In a flashback, Meruem tells Komugi his name as she reintroduces herself. Now Meruem thinks that she is mocking him with her play at first, but Komugi thought up a new strategy that allowed her to escape his variation. Whilst playing, Komugi cries tears of joy, but Meruem reveals that he's been poisoned and doesn't have long to live. And it just so happens that the poison is contagious. But Komugi plays on with a smile on her face, as if she didn't hear anything. "I see it now. This is why I was born, for this moment," thinks Meruem. The two continue playing as Meruem slowly fades away into the darkness. He continues to ask if she's there, and she always responds to him. But at the very end, she wishes him goodnight as he draws his final breath. "I'll be joining you soon," says Komugi. All the uninhabited land in NGL was designated as a nature preserve, and was placed under the jurisdiction of the Hunter Association. In his final message, Netero resigns as chairman, and says that the next chairman will be decided via an election. And with this, the Zodiacs then arrive at the Hunter Association. Alright, so at the end of the Chimera Ant Arc, we're going to talk about the best fight, best character, best moment, and the overall score that I gave it. Now in terms of the best fight, it's gotta be Meruem and Netero. The fight itself is just so engaging, exciting, exhilarating. It just keeps you on the edge of the seat throughout the entire fight. But it's more than just a fight, it's actually a philosophical discussion. Meruem, who's supposed to be a monster, is turning into a human. He sees the many flaws with humanity, and he's trying to create an existence that would be better serving to everyone. Now, all throughout the Chimera Ant Arc, we only saw Meruem as a monster, as a savage, brutal monster. He would murder anyone who got in his way, anyone who was insolent to him. But in his first real fight against a human being, he shows compassion, understanding, and intelligence. And it was a turn that I don't think really any of us saw. And in a surprising turn of events, Netero, who seemed like a cool old grandpa in the earlier manga chapters, actually shows his darker side. He shows the dark side of humanity. Humanity, after all, is filled with malice and pain. And much of this is created by the power structures we create in society. In terms of the best character, I gotta go with Morel. He beat Lial in very surprising fashion. He basically trolled Cheetu during the tag match, and he played a pivotal role in delaying Poof during the final battle. The dude's net ability is just awesome, and he just has a very cool demeanor and personality. I mean, he's just an awesome dude. What can you say? Obviously, for the best moments, it's gotta go to Kamugi and Meruem. And I'm talking about the final moments in which they play their last Gunji game together. It's so heartfelt and sorrowful, and yeah, it's just a very hard moment to read. It's just so cathartic, and Togashi just really wraps up that arc in style. It's just the perfect ending to that arc. And finally, as for the overall score that I give to the Chimera Ant Arc, I'm going to give it a 9.1 out of 10. Now for me, a 6 is good, 7 is very good, 8 is great, and 9 is just like masterful. So yes, this is a masterful arc. It is just absolutely incredible in so many different regards. And with that, let's get on to the 13th Chairman Election Arc. Now, the Zodiacs are 12 hunters who are entrusted with running the Hunter Association if the need ever arises. Among them is Mizaistam, Payan, Geru, Ginta, Cluck, Sayu, Jing, Bodobai, Kanzai, Cheetle, Sacho, and Peristan. Peristan, a very charismatic man who arrives late to the meeting, decides to nominate himself. So I have a proposal. I nominate myself as chairman. Now we can skip the election, says Peristan. This does not go over too well with the other Zodiacs. Jill hisses her snake in front of his face, and reminds him that none of the other Zodiacs would vote for him. Peristan reminds him that they only hold 11 votes, and that there are many more hunters within the association that could vote for him. He underlines the point that he empathizes with the plight of the lessers, people who make up the majority of the association. Mizaistam says that 18 people have gone missing ever since he became vice chairman. It's an unfortunate number, it pains me. But once I'm chairman, I'm sure it will go down, replies Peristan. I mean, how could you not love this guy? Come on. Jing decides to follow Netero's wishes and nominates himself for chairman. Peristan attempts to instigate Jing by reminding him that his son is currently in the hospital in a coma. But Jing doesn't lose his composure, saying his son won't die so easily. Cheeto proposes that they each write down their own voting method and have a third party member draw a slip at random. Beans draws from the 12 slips and discovers that Jing's method is the one that will be implemented. Rule number 1, all hunters are both nominated and eligible to vote, says Beans. If the winner doesn't receive a majority, there will be a revote with the top 16 nominees. Voters will have to write their names down, something that Jing finds to be more interesting. Jing will also be the chief executive for the election process, but Peristan says that this position should be decided separately. Now 2 days ago, Jing predicted that things would turn out like this, so he rigged it by entrusting his paper to Beans in advance. Now Jing has no desire to be the chairman, he's merely following Netero's wishes. And with this, the election is set to take place, with 661 hunters arriving at the Hunter Association to cast their votes. Hisoka prepares to cast his ballot, as he begins ranking the various hunters with a numerical value. Oh, and by the way, his ballot is completely blank. He continues ranking the hunters with numerical values, and to this day we have no idea how he's ranking them. He then gets surprised by a hunter with a score of 9.5. And it's none other than Illumi, disguised as Gitaracker. Illumi informs Hisoka that Gon is on the verge of death. He also states that he has another brother in his family that he wants to get rid of. Now, here are the results after the first round of voting, with Peristan receiving 37.6% of the vote. However, it's not enough to win, so it will go to a second round. By the way, I'm just a little bit curious right here. I wonder where the 2 votes for Hisoka came from. We know he didn't vote for himself. I'm guessing one came from Illumi, and maybe the second one came from Biscuit? But who knows? Now, even if Peristan did capture a sufficient majority, they didn't meet the minimum threshold of 95% voter turnout. Peristan proposes that they temporarily confiscate the hunter licenses of anyone who abstains or casts an invalid vote. But Kansai says that people just don't want him as chairman. Peristan reminds him that if they don't want him as chairman, they can simply vote for someone else. The results look more or less the same after the second round of voting, with an 88.2% voter turnout. Cheetle suspects that if Peristan takes hunters' licenses away, they won't be counted as hunters anymore, lowering the threshold for the 95% turnout. Peristan continues to make a mockery of the process, as Cheetle realizes that the only way to beat him is getting out the vote. She identifies him as a monster, and wonders why the chairman chose him of all people to be the vice chairman. In a flashback, Netero wanted to avoid picking a yes man.
So instead, he chose the most difficult man to work with, and so we got Periston. Killua then returns to his father, demanding to see Aluka since he needs her help. Silva says that no one can keep her in check, and to not think of her as family. He's something from another place. Something that came out of the darkness, says Silva. That being said, Killua says that the only person who can save Gon is Aluka. Now it turns out that Aluka is locked behind some pretty high security doors. Silva wants Killua to confirm the rules of Aluka's wishes before he heads inside. And that's because many people have died to her wishes. In a flashback, we learn that if you do what Aluka says 3 times in a row, her eyes turn black. When this happens, she grants you 1 wish. They then turn white. The various guards were thusly told to disobey Aluka's demands. But if you do so, it results in death. Killua determines that if you say no to her demands 4 times in a row, then you'll be crushed. One of the butlers uses Aluka's wish to become a millionaire. A blimp transporting several $1 million then explodes above the Zoldyck estate. Now if you fulfill 3 of Aluka's demands, then you'll be granted a wish. That being said, the bigger the wish, the bigger the demand that has to be paid by the next person. Refuse 4 demands in a row, and at least 2 people die. And the people that die are yourself and the person that you love the most. And if the wish is big enough, there will be more casualties in the next round. Now the wish that gave the butler millions of dollars ended up killing 67 people. Through their observations, Aluka has killed 13 people and 67 people respectively. Now if someone declines 4 of Aluka's requests, they and their beloved pay with their lives, as well as the people that they spent the most time with, the number of which increases depending on the severity of the wish. Killua then goes to visit his sister, Aluka. Now if Killua uses a wish to save Gon's life, he'll have to sacrifice precious lives to do so, which means the people he spent the most time with will die, which means that the people he spent the most time with will end up dying, including the entire Zoldyck family and even Hisoka. Killua, die! Says Aluka, pointing a pretend gun at him. Meanwhile, the 3rd round of the 13th chairman election yields 89.7% voter turnout. To increase voter turnout, Periston suggests that they make speeches in front of the entire membership to emphasize the importance of this election. "We have to look into their eyes and speak to their souls. For the chairman!" exclaims Periston. Now Killua knows more about Aluka's rules than anyone else. The one that calls him Killua is the real Aluka, and the one that calls him brother is Nanaka, i.e. is something. Aluka asks for a hug as the other Zoldicks watch the situation from a secret room. Now Aluka can't make demands of anyone she doesn't know, and the same person can't make a wish twice in a row. Killua grabs Aluka and demands that his dad open the door, but Silva will not allow this to happen. Now if they do not allow him to leave the mountain together in the next 30 minutes, Nanaka will kill their mother. But if they do leave in the next 30 minutes, then she'll kiss Killua on the cheek. With no other choice, Silva releases them, as Killua vows to save both Gon and Aluka. Killua finds out from Morel that Gon is not responding to external stimuli. Killua thinks that he cannot be healed by conventional methods, therefore his way is 100% guaranteed. Godo, who's listening in on the conversation, warns Killua not to reveal any secrets regarding Aluka's power. Killua then allows Godo and Canary to accompany him and Aluka on their trek. Master Silva has instructed Subone to watch over Killua as well, meaning that he's probably really pissed right now. Subone gives a stern warning and says that any sign of resistance will be harshly punished. Aluka then asks Subone for her pinky fingernail, which she complies to. That being said, she's going to go into hiding so that she won't have to oblige to any more requests. Now Killua seems worried about the situation that is manifesting, but he's still confident that he can save both Gon and Aluka. Leorio screams at Godo on the phone demanding to speak to Killua. Godo puts him in his place and reminds him that they're the ones that make the request. Morel senses that the situation is far beyond Leorio's capabilities, so he offers to help out. Now Godo wants only Gon inside the hospital when they arrive, and Morel says that they'll build a separate wing just for Gon to be in, and Godo says that this is acceptable. After the call with Godo, Morel says that the exorcist inside the Hunter Association was incapable of healing Gon. With Gon in such a miserable state, Leorio attempts to get a hold of Kurapika. Periston then gives a rousing speech in front of the Hunter Association, emphasizing the importance of voting in the 13th chairman election. Leorio then stands up and calls out Jing for not seeing his son in the hospital. Jing avoids answering the question and even mocks Leorio in the process. With his anger boiling over, Leorio punches the podium and transports his hand so that it punches Jing squarely in the face. and this makes the audience quite happy. With the fourth round of the election taking place, the voter turnout reaches 97.1%. Unfortunately, no one captured a decisive majority. Now that they reached a quorum of 95%, the next election will be between the top 16 candidates. Even though Silva gives off a different impression, he still trusts his son, hence the reason he allowed him to bring Goto along. Subone and Amane, as Silva's bodyguards, are against what Illumi has planned, which means that Silva and Zeno are against it as well. Just then, Illumi calls his brother. "You took out my needle," says Illumi. "Yeah, I feel much better," replies Killua. "So, we can fight for real?" Illumi says that he won't kill his fellow family members. That being said, he doesn't consider Luca part of the family, which really pisses off Killua. Illumi begins the contest by having a massive truck run them off the road. Hisoka is quite surprised by Illumi's reckless behavior, but the elder Zoldyck says he had a spy inside of the car, feeding him information. Illumi knows that Killua is hiding rules from him, and so he wants to get rid of Iluka before it's too late. Hisoka then wonders if it would be cool if he killed Killua, and this question makes Illumi quite furious with anger. And because of this, he gives off a terrifying killing aura. This allows Killua to spot him in the distance, which makes Illumi think that Hisoka was just doing this to mess with him. Which is true, because at the end of the day, Hisoka wants Gon to stay alive so that he can fight him in the future. The more toys, the more fun, right? Thinks Hisoka. Although Subone and Amane are here to protect Master Killua, they aren't necessarily here to protect Iluka, which means that they are Killua's enemy. Killua then uses Godspeed to escape from his butlers. Subone marvels at Killua's talent, saying that he'll far surpass Illumi in the future. But for right now, she's gotta think of a way to subdue him. Iluka wonders if the family would be better off without her, but Killua reminds her that he'll always be there for her. Meanwhile, Goto, Amane, and Canary are confronted by Hisoka. Hisoka makes the first attack by throwing cards at them. Goto flicks his coins to deflect the cards, and he tosses in a couple extra to attack Hisoka with. Goto tells the female servants to chase after Killua, as we find out that Hisoka caught all of Goto's coins. "My aura has the quality of both gum and rubber," says Hisoka. "Bungee gum." Goto attacks once again, as Hisoka stretches out his bungee gum to be used as a shield. Now the spin of the coins causes Hisoka's arms to rotate, and if he's not careful, he'll be strangled by his own aura. Hisoka disengages his bungee gum and starts darting around the trees at lightning speed. He then sends all 22 coins back at Goto, as the butler is confident that he can deflect them all. While he's busy knocking down the coins, Hisoka descends from the trees to slice his neck with the 2 playing cards. Subone is not able to keep up with Killua, forcing her to call in reinforcements. Canary and Amane board Granny's Nen motorcycle and take off. Killua realizes that he can't outrun them, so he takes evasive action and jumps into the forest. Amane and Canary beat him to the airport and tell him that they prepared an airship. Killua says that they need 5 to 6 going in different directions to throw off Illumi. On the airship, Killua tells Morel that if he uses his wish to save Gon, everyone in his family might die. With Illumi missing the flight, he wants to use needles to control people to chase down Killua. Killua informs Morel about Illumi's needles, and how they control people. Illumi then sticks multiple people with his Nen needles. Killua wants Morel to use hunters within the anti-chairman faction to hunt down Illumi, as Killua is willing to do whatever it takes to protect Iluka. Teradane, Bushidora, and Lupe of the anti-chairman faction then prioritize turning the Needle people back to normal. The anti-chairman faction wants to reform the Pure Paladin Squad, which the late chairman Netero belonged to. These are the results after the 5th round of voting, with Leorio coming in 4th place. The next round will take place between the top 8 candidates. Hisoka discovers a map for the airships, and wants to use Texture Surprise to deceive Illumi. Illumi, however, already discovered which airship Killua was on. Subone senses that she's being watched by a pair of eyes, but she can't determine the position of that person. She then transforms her body into a bird to fly through the sky. Realizing that the hunters they sent might be controlled by Illumi, Bushidora decides to handle Illumi himself. Pearston agrees to help out Teradane, as he gets as many temp hunters hired as possible. He then chuckles at how easy it is to understand their machinations. Killua can't get in touch with Goto, as he is almost at Gon's location. Now the 6th election doesn't meet the 95% quorum, so they'll have to re-vote again. Killua exits the blimp, and enters a car en route to the hospital. Illumi's various puppets then cut off all his routes forward. Killua says that it should have been impossible for Illumi to track him down, but yet Illumi did just that. Illumi knows that Killua is hiding something about Iluka's power. Killua considers calling quote-unquote it out as Subone reveals that the Zoldycks are watching them through her scope. Miloki is sending the feed to Illumi. Even though Subone sensed that someone was following her, she couldn't remove the scope since it was a direct order from Mom. Subone gives Iluka her middle and ring fingernails, as she instructs Killua to speak his wish. Illumi reminds Killua that his wish will have consequences. Hisoka wonders if he should kill Iluka and get Killua's hatred, or leave her alive and receive Illumi's hatred. Illumi states that they are having a transaction between his death and Gon's life. Hisoka still ponders what he should do next. Perhaps killing Iluka to make Killua hate him, and then killing Killua to make Illumi hate him. Killua then commands Iluka to heal Subone's left hand. Now this is all that happens when you ask it to heal someone. There are only negative consequences if you make a wish. Killua threatens Illumi as Illumi is happy that Gon is going to be healed. But he's still hiding something about Iluka's powers, and until he says everything, Iluka will never be safe. Killua realizes that if they know the final rule, they would have all planted needles within his head again. Teradane announces to everyone that Bushidora is dead. While he makes this announcement, Hisoka enters the room and kills him. After the 7th round, the election will continue with 4 contestants. Jing tells Cheeto that Periston isn't thinking about winning, but he's not thinking about losing either, and that's why he's so powerful. In truth, Periston is just going around until he's had his fun. The only one carrying out Netero's spirits is Periston, says Jing. Now there were 5,000 cocoons collected from NGL, and Periston wants to play with them in a giant garden. Each one of the coons has probably already hatched, and they could probably use Nen by now. The 8th round of the election takes place, and everyone is instructed to stay until the next chairman is decided. Killua then takes Iluka to Gon's location. Mizai-Stam says that Cheetle is the most fit to become chairman. Leorio states that if he becomes chairman, he'll make the organization his private property, and his first order will be to save Gon. Killua tells Iluka that he wants her to help his friend out. Illumi only thinks of Iluka as a tool that can possibly be tamed for his own purposes. Killua wants to make this his last wish, so Nanaka will never wake up again. Leorio's speech about saving Gon receives a round of applause. Periston gets ready for his speech, as Cheetle is confident that Leorio will win. Return Gon back to normal, says Killua. Periston opens up by saying that Mizai-Stam should be the next chairman. Now Cheetle remains irritated by Periston's antics, and concludes that the election will be extended even further. Periston continues to push Mizai, as Mizai suspects that he's from the dark side of society, with nefarious intentions. He thusly wants to destroy Periston here and now. Killua commands quote-unquote it to heal Gon, as the Zoldycks watch on with bated breath. Now Illumi wants Iluka's powers for himself at any cost. Leorio takes the top spot in the next election, but does not cross the 50% mark for a majority. With only Leorio and Periston still standing, Leorio reminds everyone that he wants to save Gon. Periston makes a motion to abolish the current Hunter exam regulations. While he talks, Cheeto realizes that he controls emotions, abuses the rules, and chooses to do things that they hate the most. Leorio reminds everyone that he just wants to save Gon, as Gon walks into the auditorium, fully back to normal. Leorio embraces Gon, as the hunters are pleased to see that he's okay. Cheeto realizes that Periston will probably win now, since Leorio will lose motivation to win. Now it turns out that Periston saw this entire scenario unfolding from the very beginning. He thought he'd lose to Jing, but when Leorio popped up, a path for winning emerged. He merely had to buy time until Gon was fully healed. Gon then finds his father amongst the other hunters, as Jing becomes incredibly nervous. The two finally meet. "Yo," says Jing. Gon apologizes, saying that his actions had Kite turned into a little girl. Jing instructs Gon to apologize to Kite, and to promise to do whatever needs to be done. Gon will go towards Kite, as Jing promises to wait for him. Periston now wants Gon to follow his intuition, and to cast his ballot for everyone to see. And Gon chooses Periston, since Leorio wants to be a doctor. "Jing, I'll be right back." Now Jing taught Kite how to use Nen, and his crazy slots has a mode called How Could I Die Like This? And it's probably the reason that he's still alive right now. Periston then wins the election in a landslide, and with this he announces, "I am choosing Cheetle as my vice. Subsequently, I will now step down from my position as chairman." And even Jing is flabbergasted by this decision. Now it turns out that Periston only became vice chairman to play around with Netero, and if things ever get boring at the association, he'll be back to play for real this time. Gon wants to reach out to Killua so that he can apologize to him. Through a series of deductions, Illumi determines that commands work independently of a wish, which means it doesn't require compensation. Illumi wants to use Iluka and guarantees her freedom moving forward. Killua calls upon Nanaka, as Illumi demands that Killua hand her over. Killua tells Nanaka to send Illumi back home, as the older brother is instantly transported back to the Zoldyck estate. Illumi wants to control Killua so that he can in turn possess Iluka's power. Killua then commands Nanaka to never come out again, as Nanaka feels extreme sadness. Nanaka then falls asleep as Iluka wakes up. Iluka is mad at Killua for making Nanaka go away and wants him to apologize. Killua apologizes and tells Nanaka to come back once more. Killua begs for forgiveness as Nanaka hugs him in reassurance. Silva then tells Subone that he's canceling the lookout on Killua. The koala Chimera Ant talks with Kite and tells him his story before he was an ant. He was a hitman for the mafia, always following orders without regards to moral implications. As an ant, he did the same thing, until a little girl changed all of that. Kite looks very similar to that little girl, so this confession makes him somewhat feel better. Kite wants him to work for his sake, and if he falters, he'll kill him. Gon meets up with Kite, apologizing for not being strong enough before. Although he defeated Pito, if Killua and the others weren't there, he wouldn't have made it out of there. Kite then implores Gon to go back to Jing. Upon returning to the Hunter Association HQ, Gon finds out that Jing will wait up for him at the top of the World Tree. Gon, Killua, and Iluka marvel at the World Tree. Killua tells Gon about Iluka's wishes, as Killua is prepared to spend the rest of his life protecting her. The two say their farewells as they part ways. Although the climb is treacherous, Gon makes his way up at blinding speeds, and even on his way up, he decides to help out a fellow climber. He then reaches the top, only to be greeted by a giant baby bird. Jing asks how long it took him to make it from the 500-meter point, and Gon says about 20 minutes. In Jing's mind, he's barely passed the test, but it's only because it's his first time. Now, Jing always wanted to investigate a royal grave, and he eventually found like-minded people that he became good friends with. Now, this world tree is young and stopped growing a long time ago. The real world tree grows out of a mountain, takes in magma, and extends beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Jing then reveals that the known world is only a small part of a much larger one, and that chosen people from long ago left records of their travels. You need 4 things to visit the outside world: permission, route, qualification, and negotiation. Jing has none of these things right now, but he's in no rush as he's in the process of enjoying his journey. The two then proceed to share stories with one another throughout the night, and Gon gives his father back his hunter license. Back on Black Whale Island, Mito receives a letter from Gon. Elsewhere, Nav and Morel drink some expensive champagne as they toast the late chairman, Netero. Gon returns to Kite to take pictures of the splendid view. He then sends the pictures to Knuckle, Shoot, Meloron, Palm, and Okago. Leorio gets the pictures as well as he attempts to call Kurapika, but Kurapika doesn't answer. He merely stays seated, somberly staring at the eyes of the members of his clan. A grave is then made for Godo, as Kiriko is now posing as him. Lastly, Kamugi and Meruem are still embracing each other, as 2 Gunji pieces lie side by side.
Now with the 13th chairman election arc in the books, we gotta talk about the best fight. And obviously that goes to the Hisoka versus Godo fight. Any fight with Hisoka is gonna be exciting, and this one just takes the cake in this arc. It's fun, it's fast-paced, and it's Hisoka doing what he does best. Best character goes to Periston. Now, I know this is going to surprise a lot of people, for obvious reasons. Periston is kind of a troll, but that's the way Togashi wrote him. He wrote him as a troll, and he plays that part perfectly. I'm not gonna lie, I love a good troll in an anime. Yeah, they're a bit irksome, and you might hate them from time to time, but the way he just plays everyone in that election contest is just so hilarious to me. I just absolutely love that. And we can definitely tell by the seeds that Togashi is laying that he has a very dark past. There's some secrets there that he's not quite revealing yet, and I can't wait to see what happens and how that all unfolds in the future. Obviously, for the best moments, it's going to go to Killua and Iluka. Iluka, having a very dangerous power, was shielded away from the rest of the Zoldicks, and that touching moment where Killua and Iluka finally get back together again, and, Iluka's got her big brother to look out for her, is just a very heartwarming moment, and it's just a great moment for the arc itself and the entire manga. Just a really good moment. And for the overall score of the arc, I'm going to give it a 7.7 out of 10. Now remember, anything in the 7 range is considered very good. So this is actually on the upper echelon of very good, approaching great. The only reason I can't put it in the great range is because the arc is very short. There's just not a lot to it. It does have a lot of cool stuff going on, but it's just not expansive enough for my taste. It's more of a bridging arc to the succession contest. I mean, it needed to happen because there was no chairman at the moment, so it did serve its purpose, and I think it did that very well. But again, the arcs that are in the great to masterful level need to have a little more meat on the bone. And with that, let's get on to the final arc, the succession contest.
Beans barges into the Zodiac's conference room, shouting about a big emergency. King of the Kakin Empire, Nasubi, wants to put the dreams of everyone on his back as he sets out for the Dark Continent. Mizai Stum says that everyone who enters the continent is met with catastrophe. The leading nations of the world, otherwise known as the V5, agreed not to go there over 200 years ago. Nasubi wants to disregard the superstitions of the past, to move into the modern world of the future. Cheadle explains that Kakin became a new nation over 30 years ago and did away with the old treaties. To head up the expedition, Nasubi has hired the previous chairman's son, Beyond Netero. Beyond says that they originally came from the Dark Continent, and he will clear the many obstacles before they set foot on its soil. He then encourages everyone to journey forth to the land of opportunity, to the new world. "I'll definitely take you there," exclaims a joyous Beyond. Afterwards, Beans reveals that the chairman left behind 2 DVDs. Now, if someone ever claimed to be his son, the Zodiacs were to watch his DVDs. People all over the world are ready to follow Beyond into the new world, and Beyond is deciding to ignore V5's prohibitions. He then gives a speech to his followers, saying he wants to explore a place that no one has ever been before. And it just so happens that Pariston is among the people that are listening in. Cheadle then announces that Jing and Pariston have withdrawn from the Zodiacs. And as it just so happens, V5 now wants the Zodiacs to hunt Beyond Netero. The IPA director and the newly assigned deputy secretary, Steiner, walk through a heavily secured hallway, and they're discussing the role of the organization in accordance with the upcoming journey to the Dark Continent. The New World gatekeepers hate rude people, so it's going to be a little bit of trouble trying to get into the Dark Continent. Now, if negotiations with Kakin break down, Pandora's box could be opened up. The director then takes Steiner into the IPA's basement, a place that is filled with various atrocities that resulted from the last entry into the Dark Continent. And all these atrocities used to be humans at one point. Steiner is to study up on the New World Traveler's Log, to get a grip on the Dark Continent. Now, the twisted human corpses were found in the known world, and they never traveled to the Dark Continent. A creature then slams up against the glass, scaring Steiner. Now, this creature was the lone survivor in his facility, and he has survived over 50 years without any sustenance. But he really can't even be considered human at this point. Steiner goes home to research the Dark Continent, as the Zodiacs watch the second DVD left by Netero. Now, it turns out that Netero has been to the Dark Continent 2 times. Beyond took an unexplored route which led to many casualties, and he ended up bringing back new threats. In Netero's words, victory does not exist within the Dark Continent, just a battle against cruel nature. He tasked the Zodiacs in achieving more success than his son in exploring the Dark Continent, and this mission's difficulty is undoubtedly an A. The Zodiacs discuss their next course of action, as Beyond makes a surprise appearance. He instructs them to inform V5 that they captured him. Steiner learns that humanity brought back 5 great calamities from the Dark Continent. Bryon, a sphere that protects ancient ruins. I, a gaseous life form, codependence of desire. Hellbell, the 2-tailed snake. Human-feeding beast Papu. And deceiver of hope, endless despair. The immortal sickness, Zobe disease. While in captivity, Beyond says he'll be freed, and they'll eventually follow him to the Dark Continent. The human world exists within Movius, a great lake in the Dark Continent. Now, brief side note right here, but I got to thinking, remember how the known world is supposed to be a very small part of the actual world that exists? It almost makes me think about Meruem's design for humans. Remember he wanted to create a sanctuary for humans to live in? I almost wonder if maybe they're already living in that sanctuary. Maybe they got cast out from the Dark Continent and this has been their living quarters ever since. Beyond has already stated that they come from the Dark Continent, so it might be a possibility, who knows. Anyway, back on track. 149 voyages were made to the Dark Continent, and among all these voyages, only 28 survivors returned back. Mr. Beyond is the only one still living. Now without guides, it's going to be impossible to get past the ocean's borders. Steiner says that the survival rate is 0.04%, and it's dangerous for an average civilian to make the journey. Watchdogs are put in charge of watching the entrance to the Dark Continent, and they're a beastly race who serve as their only connection to the Dark Continent. V5 then considers inviting Kakin into the organization while supporting their journey. Now immigrants will be dropped off near the ocean's border, and will be told that they're living in a new continent. Cheadle agrees to accompany Beyond to the Dark Continent. However, she warns him that this will be a long arrest. Yet this is no concern to Beyond, as he's willing to wait as long as it takes. The Black Whale transport ship is then presented to the people. It carries 200,000 people, and in 5 years, it's going to send 1 million people to the Dark Continent. Jing then appears before Periston and asks to join Beyond's team. Jing then determines that Periston is sheltering 5,000 Chimera ants. He offers to be his playmate, as Periston is pleased to have a worthy competitor. Cheadle then asks Leorio to join the Zodiacs, allowing him to continue his studies with his medical team. Leorio accepts the request, and invites Cheadle to challenge him. Leorio also wants someone else to join the Zodiacs. Periston says that Cheadle will separate the Hunter exam from the organization, which he disagrees with. Jing thinks that Periston is attempting to destroy the organization, but Periston asks him to substantiate this claim. Jing says that he could spread the Chimera ants across the world, while opening up an illegal route to the Dark Continent. Now, as it turns out, Periston is unlike most people. When he's hated by others, that's when he feels happiness. He also wants to inflict harm upon the things he loves. But is that really all that strange? I wonder, says Periston. Usaman threatens Jing, but Jing lifts him up and gives him the impression of caving his face in with a punch. But in actuality, the punch never happened. He somehow implanted this memory into his mind. Now Periston is currently the number 2 with Beyond's organization, but Jing promptly takes that title away from him. Mizai uses his net ability, a cross game, to restrain the movements of his adversaries. Now every time they oppose him, they'll be unable to move. Kurapika then comes down to greet Mizai Stum, as the latter asks him to join the Zodiacs. Mizai suspects that he's still looking for his clan's eyes, which immediately sets off Kurapika into a blood-curdling rage. Mizai tells him about a dark website where people with particular fetishes have been collecting the eyes, and they have identified the owner of the eyes. But for them to reveal that classified information, Kurapika is going to have to join the Zodiacs. Furthermore, he's going to have to journey with them to the Dark Continent. Kurapika then agrees to join the Zodiacs, as Mizai says that the owner of the eyes is the 4th prince of the Kakin Empire, Serednik. Serednik is a genius in many disciplines, and he's the last person that Kurapika must hunt down for the eyes. Kurapika sits before a shrine of his people's eyes, as he has no home to return to. Now, as Periston is the number 2, they had order within the Beyond organization. Now, if Jing is trying to stir up trouble, they'll eliminate him here and now. Jing will double the reward money that Beyond is paying, and he'll give it to them up front. Other than that, they can continue doing things as they have. Apart from that, Jing doesn't plan on doing anything, leaving the Beyond Netero team baffled. Now it seems too good to be true, but Jing confirms there's no stipulations. A member hands Jing his account information, as Jing stays true to his word and wires him the money. Periston is okay with Jing being number 2. In fact, he's a tremendous asset to the Beyond team. Now Jing will double Periston's money as well, but he assumes that he's probably doing this for free, which he's correct. After talking with Leorio, Kurapika says that his abilities won't be much help on the Dark Continent, but he's thankful to be in close proximity to the prince. Mizai Stum instructs Kurapika to tread carefully, since the prince has a darker side that is truly terrifying. However, Kurapika has dealt with monsters in human flesh before. Elsewhere, we find out that Gon cannot access his Nen. The 5 calamities from the Dark Continent exceed the Chimera Ants in terms of their threat levels. Beyond intends on taking an unexplored route, but even if they avoid the 5 calamities, a 6th one could emerge. Now in terms of concrete discoveries, Jing says that they found Ghost Stone, a mineral that generates electricity when it's submerged in water. But the mountains where the stone is located is guarded by the human beast pup. Now if you go north into the Dark Continent, you'll end up in a sea of trees. And inside those trees is a mysterious labyrinth inside of a town. And there you can find herbs that can cure thousands of different diseases. However, a plant weapon guards the town, and that weapon eliminated the entire elite force of the Sahelta Empire, except for 2 people. To the south of Mobius is the ultimate longevity food, nitrograin, but this region is guarded by the Hellbell. The Hunter Association previously allied with Netero during an expedition to the Dark Continent. According to Netero, the Dark Continent is gigantic, and it's a place that gave him noticeable trepidation. On his expedition, he was with Zig Zoldyck and Lynette Adobel. V5 thusly wants to put a taboo on anyone attempting to travel to the Dark Continent. The member who received money from Jing returns, saying that he spent it all to help his sister's hospital bills. He then agrees that Jing is number 2 on the team. Curly inquires about previous expeditions to the Dark Continent. Jing explains that there is one person that explored the continent 300 years ago, and he wrote the New Continent's Traveler's Journals, East and West. Now, only the East copy has been found, and it's possible that the West copy is still being written to this day, and the author of that book is Don Freaks. Gon calls his father to let him know that he can't release his aura anymore. Jing says that he can't see it anymore, and it's a direct result of the vow he made in his fight with Pito. So Jing implores him to just enjoy life from now on, and Gon heeds his father's advice. He returns to Black Whale Island, reunites with Mito, and helps out with the housework. Now perhaps if Gon could still use his Nen, he might have gone with Jing, but in truth, he wanted to find his dad, not necessarily meet him. If he could feel the brilliance of Jing's Nen, he probably would have went. But now that he's with Mito, he's got a lot of homework to catch up on. Meanwhile, back in Beyond's lair, an expedition member informs Jing that they've split into 2 groups. Those who have taken Jing's money, and those who won't. They thusly won't listen to his instructions until they all take the money. Jing determines that they're all specialists specifically picked by Beyond for this expedition. Jing explains why all their skills are vital in the expedition, while Pearston thinks about how his way and Jing's way of thinking are very alike, and this irritates him. And this might be the first time in his life that he's been irritated to the point that he hates someone. And the more that Jing talks, the more Pearston wonders what he'll do to someone that he hates. One of the members accepts Jing's offer, as Curly wonders why Jing is going to such lengths to usurp Pearston's nominal authority. Elsewhere, 2 girls at a club are instructed to go to Prince Serednik's property. The prince welcomes them in, and wants to hear all about their stories. Later on, Serednik is seen taking a shower as he talks to Mark on the phone. Mark is the guy that picked out the 2 women, and he tells Mark that he's looking for women with a fascination for intellectual endeavors. These 2 were only interested in fashion and nonsense stuff, and Serednik says that killing them was no different from dissecting an animal. He then tells Mark to bring him 2 more, as we see the entire bathroom is covered in blood. The IPA director orders Cheeto to make Beyond sign a contract, and if he breaks the rules, he'll spend the rest of his life in jail. Beyond is given the contract, which will be used to censor and track his whereabouts at all times. Beyond says that this is reasonable, as he happily signs. He then says that there are only 3 things left: capacity, means, and contract. Kurapika doesn't care what happens to the prince, as long as he gets the eyes back. However, should the prince resist, Kurapika will forcibly change his mind, as he has done with others who resisted him. Kurapika meets up with Leorio at the Hunter Association, as the former is a little bit worried about going to the Savage Continent. Cheeto invites everyone inside, and begins by saying that all of V6's attempts at challenging the Dark Continent have resulted in failure. They are thusly tasked with capturing one of the 5 threats, and to survive the return trip. With all the threats being B+ and higher, the situation is more deadly than that of the Chimera Ants. And for them to get over that situation, Netero literally had to sacrifice his life. Kurapika realizes that Beyond has allies within the organization, so he's wondering how many have been identified. Beyond has waited for this opportunity, only needing his father to pass away before implementing his plan. Now, it was always part of his plan to control this project while being restrained by the Hunter Association. He thusly used a right-hand man, Pearston, to gather temp hunters so that he could control things from the inside. While he ponders things over, Mizai asks him to step outside. Now, it turns out that him and Cheeto already came to the same conclusion, but they haven't shared any of this information yet because they suspect that there is a traitor within the Zodiacs. Now, Netero designated Pearston to choose the new Zodiac members, which, as it turns out, complicates matters. Now, once they go to the Dark Continent, each Zodiac member will have a specific role to play. Cheeto is an incurable disease hunter, Mizai is a crime hunter, Botobai Defense Division, Pion Intelligence Division, Cluck Biology Division, Sacho Intelligence, Sayu Defense, Ginta Biology, Kanzai Defense, Geru Science, Leorio will support Cheeto's medical team, and although he's inexperienced, he's gonna try his best. Kurapika will support the intelligence division. Now, he's made connections with many outlaws, so he believes he can furnish information about Beyond and Kakin. A new hunter exam will take place, with the Zodiacs deciphering the necessary talent that they're going to need for the Dark Continent. 1 month later, Jing teaches Beyond's team how to create Nen warts, and how to move them around your body. It's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool at the same time. Curly loses an ancient language battle with Jing, forcing him to admit defeat and to accept his money. Periston informs Jing that the hunter exam took place, and all their undercover assassins failed. Although, like usual, Periston is smiling. Muhur and his assassins failed the exam, as he claims that Kurapika can read minds. Periston says that this situation is much easier now, as Beyond was planning to escape with his own strength when they arrive on the Dark Continent. The assassin orders Jing to go away, but Jing is closer to Beyond's side than he is with the association, and he's okay with not making it back home, where Beyond wants to produce results. He wants to help Beyond by any means necessary, and at the same time, restrain Periston from his perverse love of destruction. Though Beyond's team was apprehensive of Jing at first, they realize how useful he's going to be in the future. Just then, the other assassins arrive as they care not about Jing's status as number 2. They then give him an ultimatum. Either Jing leaves or Periston leaves. Jing decides to present a third option. The assassins leave. And Periston a fourth. The assassins all die. Such a lovable guy, that Periston. Now the assassins are taking the fifth option, killing both of them here and now. The assassins unload their clips on Jing and Periston, as the two make their quick escape. Jing complains about them having a bad temper, as Periston mocks him for having one himself. Though they're emitter types, Jing is confident that he can take them down with no issues. Periston then watches in amazement, as Jing perfectly replicates Leorio's remote punch, and he does this to knock out 3 assassins at once. Jing explains that if he gets hit by a strike ability once, he can pretty much replicate it down to a T. And it's not even his Nen ability, it's just a natural talent he has. Jing uses his aura to let out pulses that are like ultrasonic waves, allowing him to scan the perimeter. Imagining the wall as a body with a tumor, he shoots 2 aura bullets straight through it, knocking down the remaining assassins. Now Jing determines that this whole thing was staged by Periston. He encourages Periston to come at him, that is, if he wants to see his Nen ability. Muhur says that those were backup soldiers, who will serve as artillery support on the Dark Continent. Muhur then shows him Golem, a symbiotic Nen user who can conjure a powerful weapon, and it's manned by an emitter type who creates the bullets. Muhur admits to Jing that he had no problems with him being number 2. That is, until he brought up the thing about money. Soldiers value each other's trust above all else. And if rumors start swirling about people being bought out, it will lead to people being ostracized. Now Jing wants to mend the situation by donating to the Noel Foundation. Now the Noel Foundation provides aid to families of fallen soldiers. Now if Jing made a grandfather account, he'd be considered a soldier. And because of this, he wouldn't be able to turn down a request. Muhur doesn't understand Jing's rationale for doing this. In fact, he's pretty baffled by it. But if they accepted his money, it would mean that they're foolish like him, but in a good way. Now Jing wanted to go to the Dark Continent on his own accord, but the fuss created by Beyond made it impossible. And when he came to Beyond's base, he wanted to blow off some steam, presumably by kicking their asses. But by some weird reason, he decided to join up with them on a whim. Even still, Jing wanted the number 2 spot to stop Periston's schemes. With Jing opening up an account for the Noel Foundation, it will make him a member of Muhur's team, which means that he'll be his subordinate and he'll have to address him with, "Yes, sir." Jing will now send the money out to the various members of the organization, as Periston congratulates him on being number 2. Now Periston could wrestle things away from him, but he'd much rather be a spectator in the proceedings. At the final part of the 289th Hunter exam, Cheeto asks applicants whether they knew about Beyond's trip to the Dark Continent prior to Nasubi's announcement, and if so, how they access that information. Kurapika uses his dowsing chain to check the veracity of applicants' answers. Now many spies have slipped their way in, but Kurapika's abilities have weeded many of them out. Under normal circumstances, he has to be in front of the person for his ability to work, but when he focuses to his utmost limits, he can perceive minute details in their demeanor. However, he speculates that if the applicant's memories were altered by someone else, then he wouldn't be able to rely on his chain anymore. Serednik receives a call from his eldest brother, Benjamin, who tells him that father has accepted a competition among the other princes. Now the terms of the competition are clear and simple.
Whoever survives the voyage to the Dark Continent will soon be king. Serednik is grateful, for at last he can eradicate every last piece of garbage without reserve. "Tremble and shake in your sleep, Benjamin, for I will be king," says Serednik. Benjamin vows to break all of his bones in his body, as the younger brother mocks him by feigning fear. Benjamin squeezes the life out of a lion, as Serednik receives a call from Theta, one of his bodyguards. Theta says that all 5 bodyguards passed the exam. Now the other princes have done likewise, except for Benjamin and Tyson. Benjamin believes his bodyguards are above the association, so he's not going to lower himself by allowing them to be judged. Lazarus's bodyguards did not pass the exam. Now Serednik wants his bodyguards to memorize the layout of the Black Whale, and to plan for all contingencies. He then admonishes his siblings, claiming that none of them are fit to be king. In fact, it's completely out of the question, for he will survive this contest and become king. Mizai says that the Zodiacs are comprised of 3 factions, and he only knows the powers of the members within his faction. Now to strengthen cooperation, Mizai has asked for all the Zodiacs to share their powers, which they all give their consent to. Mizai tells Kurapika that he won't tell the Zodiacs about his powers, but he won't share theirs either. Mizai then suspects that Yunde and Muher were sent in as spies, and it's possible that they were sent in by someone very powerful. Now Kurapika will test the various Zodiacs in secret to see which one is working with Periston. Kanzai becomes agitated when Mizai suggests that one of them may be working with Beyond. Mizai then reveals his Nen ability, Cross Game. Now the blue card forces admissions, the yellow card restrains them, and the red one removes them. Now Kurapika watches this whole thing play out on a monitor, and he does this in a secret room via a hidden camera. And by using his dowsing chain, he's able to determine that Sayu is the traitor. The succession to the king's throne will be limited to the 14 princes, and will begin as soon as the Black Whale sounds its departure horn. If any candidate dies before the horn is sounded, the contest will be cancelled. The 14 princes are henceforth shown, with some of them still being children. Their royal blood is placed in a seed urn, which grants them a guardian sacred beast, although they are unaware of this. We then see the king's guardian sacred beast, which is a Nen beast created at the time of death by the powerful desire for the perpetuation of one's descendants. The Black Whale will depart on August 8th, and Mizai Stum says it would be a pain for the king if Beyond were omitted from the historic event. If Beyond, however, tells Mizai Stum who's on his side from the Zodiacs, then he will permit him to attend the ceremony. Beyond is not aware of any spy working in the Zodiacs, and this is confirmed with Kurapika's dowsing chain. Kurapika believes that Beyond will not cause any trouble on the upcoming trip, and that's because he wants to highlight the king's achievement. Kurapika and Mizai Stum then watch some videotape about Sayu's Nen ability. It's called See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Speak No Evil. It robs a person of these 3 vital senses, which makes it hard to activate or maintain abilities. Nen abilities. They're going to monitor Sayu's movements while on the Black Whale, with the intention of arresting him prior to landing on the new continent. Word then comes in that the Kaken princes are hiring bodyguards to guard them during the voyage, and to eliminate any risk factors. The 6 princes that are hiring bodyguards are giving a preference to hunters, but Kurapika sees this as a potential opportunity. He wants to use hunters whom he knows, Basho, Biscuit, Hanzo, Azunavi, and Melody, to infiltrate the prince's security detail. Kurapika makes it clear that he only wants information that will get him as close to the 4th prince as possible. Anything besides that, they can use their own discretion. Kurapika says that if they can rattle Serednik before the departure, then they don't even need to board the boat at all, they could all just go home. Biscuit says that if this is the case, she still wants her payment nonetheless. And in a humorous moment, Kurapika slights her by saying that it was implied if she possessed the normal comprehension skills. And obviously, Biscuit is not too happy about this. To smooth the situation over, Kurapika calls her a delicate flower and a princess. And sure enough, this complimentary talk has Biscuit eating out of the palm of his hand. Kurapika reviews the 6 princes' request for the bodyguards, attempting to determine which one is which. He then reminds himself of Prince Halkenberg's information, stating that he won a silver medal in the Archery World Championships. He has the best qualities among the princes, as he openly criticizes the royals for their behavior. Because of this, he entered a boarding school to avoid possible assassinations. Now the only prince that he accepts is, ironically enough, Serednik. And because of this, Kurapika wants to be his bodyguard. And in this way, he can gather as much information as possible about Prince Serednik. All the other group members make their selections, as Kurapika hopes that he chose correctly based on his assumptions. Kurapika arrives at the hotel to meet with the prince who made the request. But to his surprise, it's not Halkenberg. It's actually the mother of Prince Wobble, Queen Oito. Queen Oito intentionally made her request look like it was coming from Prince Halkenberg. The only thing that the princess could change with their request were the fees that they were offering and the pre-selected options for their descriptions. Prince Halkenberg, as it turns out, did not make a post on the website. He's very strict with himself and others. He wants to change the royal family politically, and some followers are even scheming to use him to form a dictatorship. Most who get close to Halkenberg are assassins or fake followers. So if someone thought that Halkenberg was putting out a request, it would be quite convenient for Queen Oito. And that's because she wants someone that will kill others while at the same time protecting Prince Wobble. This is when Queen Oito admits that the voyage on the Black Whale is more than meets the eye. It is in fact a killing spree until only one prince remains. The higher ranking princes who have power and wealth have personal armies, so they are well prepared for the upcoming battle. The princes were all instilled with a belief that one day they would become the king, and anyone who would think otherwise is a deserter and would be killed. For those in the weakest positions, Prince Halkenberg is their one glimmering hope, as they might be able to buy their safety from him. And to do this, they'll blackmail him with his participation in this very battle. If Kurapika manages to get them off of the ship alive, Oito will give him 10 times the promised pay. Kurapika states that if she agrees to his conditions, he promises to protect the two to the best of his abilities. Now, Queen Oito came from poverty, so when the king took an interest in her, she became obsessed with becoming a royal wife. Unfortunately, when Prince Wobble was born, Oito learned of the unfortunate fate. That's the moment in which she regretted it all, and finally realized what really matters in life. Oito asks if he would like to hold the baby, to which Kurapika puts out his hands and cradles the young prince. And goddamn is this an emotional moment. Amidst all the darkness and suffering, it's always nice to see a moment like this. It's a nice contrast that balances out all the dark moments. Now as for the other hunters, Aizunavi has Prince Tyson, Biscuit has Prince Mariam, Basho has Prince Lazarus, Melody is with Prince Kacho, and Hanzo is with Prince Momozi. And the chapter ends with the seed urn emitting a mysterious dark energy. And we have to wonder to ourselves what this all means. Now the next time that we see Hisoka is at Heaven's Arena, and he's challenging a floor master, and it turns out to be none other than Chrollo. "Let's take this to the death," says Chrollo. "Okay." The use of any and all weapons is permitted. Chrollo pulls out his book, as Hisoka readies his card. Chrollo throws a black antenna at the judge's neck, and shows Hisoka a small phone. Hisoka notices another antenna as the referee lunges for Hisoka with vicious intent. The clown determines that Chrollo wants to stick him with the other antenna, as he uses the judge as a distraction. Hisoka wonders how many people Chrollo can control at once. Hisoka then uses bungee gum to attach the judge to pull him towards Chrollo. Chrollo dodges and waits patiently behind the judge so he can stick Hisoka. Stick Hisoka. Hisoka slices the judge's neck with one of his cards, but the judge's chest explodes. Hisoka thusly retreats to the ceiling. Sun and moon. He affixes the seals to his hands, and when they touch, they explode. In an instant, Chrollo affixed the seals to the referee. If the referee were to press them together for 3 to 5 seconds, it would have blasted everyone in the arena. I acquired this ability in Meteor City. Chrollo has a bookmark called Double Face, which allows him to use an ability on a page in the book, even when it's closed. He can have the bookmark on one page and have it open on another, allowing him to use 2 abilities at once. Well, technically speaking, he's using 4 abilities. The book, the bookmark, and the 2 stolen abilities. But only the book and the bookmark belong to him. Chrollo came up with the bookmark so he could use abilities that required 2 hands. Fighting without holding the book is also a nice perk as well. He's going to introduce 3 more abilities to Hisoka, which is a new record for him in killing someone. Chrollo accumulates abilities to assure his victory, which is what he did to Hisoka. Chrollo uses Order Stamp, which allows him to control puppets. While Black Voice can only control 2 people at once, Order Stamp allows him to control a greater number of people, but he can't give them complex orders when doing so. He uses Gallery Fake to make a copy of the judge, and uses Order Stamp to control him. Being a skill hunter, Chrollo relishes mastering other skills while making it all his own. Hisoka decapitates the fake. Chrollo then reveals Convert Hands Transfer Student, which allows him to swap appearances with someone. He then states that when someone dies, their abilities disappear from the book. However, one of the abilities he currently possesses belongs to a dead person, then becoming stronger through death. Chrollo informs Hisoka that once the Sun and Moon seals have been affixed, they can never be removed, meaning the ability remains intact regardless of whether Chrollo has a bookmark on the page. Chrollo brings forth Black Voice as Hisoka activates Bungee Gum. Chrollo controls someone to block his path. After defeating him, another one comes forward. The order of events are going as follows. Black Voice, use bookmark to maintain ability, activate convert hands, transform into someone else, move bookmark to convert hands, close book, and hide. The crowd panics as Hisoka realizes that Chrollo is hiding amongst them with his abilities. All of a sudden, 30 puppets rush towards Hisoka. The clown uses Bungee Gum to elevate himself, but the horde of puppets are unrelentless. Chrollo appears behind him and lands a critical blow. How magnificent, thinks Hisoka. The clown battles the horde as Chrollo flies in with a kick to the neck. Hisoka tries to establish his bearings, but Chrollo won't give him a single moment. Chrollo comes from above as Hisoka uses Bungee Gum to throw several heads at him. I saw you set the whole move up, says Chrollo. I know, replies Hisoka, as a second severed head hits its target. Hisoka uses another head to hit Chrollo's left side as the two reset themselves. The clown continues eliminating the fakes whilst attacking his main target. Chrollo escapes into the crowd as Hisoka takes down all the fakes, except for one. Chrollo dispels the stamp as Hisoka gives chase. Hisoka chucks severed heads as he realizes that Chrollo might have his book open to Black Voice inside his clothing. Hisoka uses Bungee Gum to propel several people at Chrollo. He throws a severed head at Chrollo and catches Chrollo's leg with his Bungee Gum. He smashes the man to death, but it turns out that Chrollo disguised an audience member as himself. This makes him realize that he's been misled, and audience members marked with the seal don't disappear. Through this trickery, Chrollo was able to ascertain how Hisoka interpreted his explanation. Hisoka then realizes that the real order is activate gallery fake, affix the bookmark and close the book, mass produce copies, activate sun and moon, affix the sun seal on copies, release ability, activate order stamp, and then finally, order them to break Hisoka. Since the rescue crew will be here soon, Chrollo will probably put an end to everything very soon. The audience goes into a frenzy, but the crazed clown embraces the challenge. He grabs a group of them with his Bungee Gum, twirls them around, and mows down the oncomers. His human hammer breaks as more rush forward. Amongst the audience, Chrollo uses Black Voice to give an unknown person some commands. Hisoka holds a severed head in his hand. Now, says Chrollo. A sudden explosion takes off 4 fingers on Hisoka's left hand. Chrollo attached a full-powered bomb onto one of the bodies, placed a plus sign on it, and had one of his puppets with a minus sign touch it. I suppose from here on, I won't have the freedom to analyze and pick apart your tactics. Now it's do or die. Hisoka pulls off a head and attaches himself to a wall with his Bungee Gum. The horde, however, is unrelenting. He makes a mad dash, but it's not long before all the paths are blocked off. A massive explosion ensues, sending Hisoka flying across the stadium. He wants to Bungee Gum up to the ceiling for safety, but realizes that his right leg is now gone. Chrollo then starts chucking audience members at him. What's this? Going to die? Well, I guess if I'm gonna die anyway. A massive explosion ensues. Firefighters and paramedics rush onto the scene. Numerous victims lost their lives to the incident, and it is presumed that Hisoka was among them that died. The members of the spider stare down at Hisoka's charred body. Turns out the cause of death was suffocation, due to the wall of flesh piled on top of him. Machi decides to still patch him up as the others decide to leave. This is a thank you for helping with the boss's Nen exorcism. As she leans closer, Nen aura swells from the corpse. Nen that becomes stronger after death. A flashback shows Hisoka using his rubber nen to caress his vital organs for protection. Then, at a later time, expand and contract them back to life. Hisoka's eyes open in real time as he swallows a breath of air. Yo, Machi? Machi instructs him to sit down so she can stitch him up. However, Hisoka declines and instead uses his Bungee Gum to reconstruct his face and missing body parts. Machi decides to leave, but Hisoka manipulates her body. With her immobilized, Hisoka tells her to inform the others that he won't stop until he kills all the spiders. If you want to stop me, how about you free yourself and try? Chrollo finds out that the Kakin royal family is taking a vast amount of treasure to the new continent, which he wants to steal. Shalnark hangs up, wondering where Kortapi is. Hisoka chucks her severed head at him and knocks him down with extreme force. 10 more to go, says Hisoka. It looks like Hisoka is hellbent on eliminating all the spiders. The Eve's festival commences with the journey close at hand. The Kakin Emperor is thrilled as he introduces Beyond and the 14 princes. The king's airship lands on top of the whale, and slowly everyone else of importance boards the whaleboat. The boat is layered into 5 tiers, depending on the status of the person. The black whale will be under martial law, with strict rules and regulations. The voyage will be 2 months long. Now, the Royal Army is a neutral party to the succession contest. They monitor the hallways and keep a track of all activities so no assassinations can take place. Kurapika determines that there are many loopholes in this situation, and they must first ascertain the enemy's capabilities and assess the balance of power. Outside the prince's living corridors, there will be almost 150 provisional hunters roaming the hallways with secret missions. Mizai-Stum is focused on tiers 3 and 4, and the crime rate is far higher than anticipated. Bodobai is busy assisting the military to take command of private security, so the two of them won't be able to attend the Zodiac's meetings before the departure. Now, as it turns out, Kaken is incredibly disorganized, especially in regards to clinics and doctors on the lower tiers. Kurapika then implores Oito to familiarize herself with all the possible escape routes, and this will increase the probability of survival in a dire circumstance. Now, Oito had prepared to die on this ship, so now that there's a sliver of hope that she could survive, she's completely out of sorts. As Oito goes to the baby carriage, Kurapika detects a powerful, dark presence emitting from behind him. And surprisingly, it's coming from the infant Prince Wobble. The black whale then successfully leaves port, as it will now spend the next 2 months sailing towards the Dark Continent. In 3 weeks, they will exit humanity's normal navigational and fishing waters. Here, they will refuel and perform one final check on their vessel. While the majority of passengers will get off at the new continent, the Zodiacs will transfer to Morel's ship for the gate where the gatekeepers wait. On Tier 1, Kanzai, Sacho, and Sayu sit outside of Beyond's holding cell. Though it seems weird to have 3 Zodiacs watching over Beyond, Sacho says it's good to have multiple Zodiacs on Tiers 1 and 2. You know, in case of any emergencies that may come up. Steiner continues reading about the Dark Continent, particularly the section about the Labyrinth City. He wants his associates to familiarize themselves with the same information, but they seem relatively unconcerned about this. Surely this won't come back to bite them in the future. One of Wobble's bodyguards, Woody, is then found inside the bathroom with all his blood drained. Kurapika removes his suit to find out that his entire body is covered in holes. It's reasonable to assume that this was a Nen attack, most likely done by an outsider. Things are worse than Kurapika thought, as he already senses tension between the royal guards and the hunters. The other Nen users don't want Kurapika to bring up Nen, since this is all an internal conflict within the Kaken army. Further discussions reveal that the other Nen users were hired by Pariston, so they are unaware about the succession battle. At the ceremonial hall, Benjamin is resolute in executing all the other princes himself, and anyone that gets killed by another prince is just lucky that they weren't killed by him. "Death by my hands won't be so simple," says Benjamin. Prince Kacho tells her twin sister Fugetsu that they will work together in this succession contest, and after they've killed all the other princes, she'll convince Daddy to let her live. Now, in actuality, we don't actually know if this is a possibility, but she seems to think it is. Regardless, their guards will be working together in the future. Kacho acts very demanding around her bodyguards, but Melody picks up on the fact that she's fooling herself. In effect, she's putting on an act. While escorting Queen Oito and Prince Wobble back to the room, Kurapika comes across multiple bodyguards who have died from the same Nen attack as Woody. Kurapika then pulls out his gun and dowsing chain, as he's in no mood to play around. "If you lie, the chain will move. If it moves, I will shoot." Kurapika informs the bodyguards about the death match between the princes. 2 of the guards know about the succession war and are not here to protect Prince Wobble. 7 bodyguards were chosen by the 7 queens to spy on the 8th queen, who is Queen Oito. Despite spying on Queen Oito, they are not here to assassinate Prince Wobble. Things have not descended that far into anarchy. Well, not yet at least. The parasite egg jar ceremony was used to endow all the royalty with Nen abilities. All of a sudden, parasitic creatures start crawling on the guards. The room then becomes infested with Guardian Sacred Beast. Kurapika uses the emergency channel to communicate what's happening with the others. Incidentally, some other people hear about this conversation as well. After talking to Biscuit, Kurapika thinks, so then, does that mean that this deathmatch will unfold all on its own? Bill states that parasitic type Nen abilities can act without their host being aware, and their host can't even control them. The group hears a scream, finding out that Cyrid killed 2 of the restrained guards. Kurapika takes up the challenge to restrain Cyrid. Cyrid lunges forward with his dagger as Kurapika wraps his chain around his wrist. This allows him to flip him over and restrain him. Kurapika then steals his Nen ability, Little Eye, which allows him to launch a Nen ball at small living creatures and control them. We then see a flashback with Aizunavi.
The instructor worries about Krapka fighting alone, but Krapka is unconcerned and rather relishes doing everything by himself. Aizunavi encourages him to find allies, as it will be a great benefit to him. In the now, Krapka sees a small parasitic creature coming out of Cyrid's ear. He then equips the stolen power, but it does not work on living beings conjured by Nen, so I can't use it to hijack the enemy's ability. They tie Cyrid to a chair, and he tells Krapka that his ability can only take control of something the size of a hamster. The guards take away Cyrid, as there's only 2 hours left until they leave port, and the 11 bodyguards are down to a mere 2. We then see Momozi knitting on a chair, with her Nen beast sitting right behind her. Prince Halkenberg then approaches his father. I'm withdrawing from the succession battle. I only participated in the ceremony to save face for you, father. I don't need a crown won through bloodshed. Ho ho ho. Do as you wish. Turns out that the host character and what they are thinking or feeling end up heavily influencing the parasite. Krapka realizes that the real fight begins once the princes return from the ceremony. Cyridnich forms an alliance with Tubepa, the 5th prince. We then catch a glimpse of the guardian sacred beast. King Nasubi states that the spirit beasts cannot kill one another, and can't kill a human whom another spirit beast is protecting. While they provide protection, it's up for the princes to figure out how to kill one another. We then catch a glimpse of some of the other princes' sacred beast. Sarkov tells Theta that if Cyridnich is going to learn Nen at some point, that she should teach him a useless ability to lessen his potential for evil doings. Despite her reservations, she realizes she has no other option, since an evil mind will create evil Nen, and with her teaching him, she could possibly control that evil. Prince Lazarus and Tyson become aware of the guardian sacred beast and the Nen. Prince Halkenberg then finds all his bodyguards unconscious on the floor. Theta is then confronted by Cyridnich's sacred beast. Of all the people, he's the one person that absolutely cannot be allowed to master Nen, thinks Theta. Prince Zhang, the 3rd prince, is told about the situation involving Prince Wobel's bodyguards. Camilla, the 2nd prince, asks for clarification about the rules of the game. The one sole survivor will be the official successor to the throne. How you might interpret that is all a part of the succession war. Benjamin pesters her, but she reveals her darker side. Just wishing something alone won't make it happen. This world is just way too unfair. Benjamin then tells his father that he shall protect the great and mighty tree of Kakin. Benjamin leaves in a fit of rage, vowing that he'll kill every last one of them. Balsamilko urges him to wait until they figure out the rules of the survivor game, before making a move. Since Benjamin can't see his Nen beast, they need to work on defensive strategies. In addition, because of Krapka's earlier announcement, all the other princes are aware of the presence of Nen users on the boat. Benjamin deduces that the younger princes and their hunter bodyguards are working together. Benjamin then brings forth his private soldiers to act as the other princes' royal bodyguards, and to report all their observations. The other princes, however, catch on to Benjamin's intentions. Meanwhile, Cyridnich begins his Nen training. One of Prince Benjamin's guards then arrives at Prince Wobel's quarters. Vincent, Prince Benjamin's personal soldier, kills one of the servants, claiming it was an act of self-defense. If you come any closer, I'll have to conclude that you're accomplices in the assassination plot of the 14th Prince Wobel, and I'll have to take self-defensive action. Krapka puts up his hands as Vincent asks him if he'll cooperate with him. Krapka then stares over at Prince Oito. Will you trust me, Prince Wobel, Queen Oito? I will trust you, no matter what happens. Krapka then throws a chain into her forearm, transferring the little eye ability to her. Vincent starts firing his gun as Bill activates his Nen for defensive measures. Vincent goes in for a Nen attack, but Krapka uses a chain to drain all his aura. Krapka and Bill then take the gun from Vincent and restrain him on the ground. Vincent attempts to deny his ill-doing, but Krapka intends to find out the truth with his ability. To avoid this, Vincent then commits suicide by biting down on a poisonous pill. Balsamilko listens in on the conversation with the radio, but it eventually cuts out as Krapka figured out what was going on. Benjamin summons Baba Manya to take over for Vincent. Krapka wants to use Little Eye on Marion's pet hamster, but instead tells Oiko to use it on a fly or a mosquito to spy on the other princes. Krapka then mentions if he uses Emperor's Time, every second that it's activated, it will shorten his life by 1 hour. They then receive phone calls from Benjamin, Zhang Lei, and Tubepa as Baba Manya arrives at the door. Krapka wonders which phone call he should answer first. Krapka asks Shimano, the maid, to tell the soldier outside to wait as he asks to be connected with Prince Benjamin first. This is a most exceptional honor, prioritizing me over Prince Benjamin, says Zhang Lei. Krapka angrily glares over at Shimano for connecting the wrong call. Zhang Lei wants Krapka to visit his room for an exchange of information. Krapka wants to bring Oito and Prince Wobel, which Zhang Lei agrees to. Krapka then finds out that Benjamin is already hung up. The second lieutenant major under Prince Tubepa wants a truce in exchange for information on Nenbeast. After some disagreement, they agree to contact each other in 1 hour. Shimano states that Prince Benjamin cannot be reasoned with,
with, and she doesn't want to die prematurely. He then asks her opinions about the soldier outside. She states that he'll look for a scenario in which he can construct a reasonable cause for Oito's suicide. Kurapika tells Baba Manya that he's heading for the third prince's corridors. The soldier states he'll thusly wait in their room. Kurapika, Oito, and Wobble encounter Baba Manya as they make their way to Zhang Lei's room. Those are the fourth Prince Serednich's corridors, thinks Kurapika. After entering Zhang Lei's room, Kurapika begins to explain Nen and the Guardian Sacred Beast. Now, the information I'm about to give you is of extreme importance, enough to affect the outcome of the Succession War, says Kurapika. Are you sure that you wish to have this conversation here? Hanzo and Biscuit notice that Mariam's Guardian Beast has grown in size. One of Prince Momozi's royal guards is planning to kill her at an opportune moment. Prince Halkenberg wakes up, finding out that all his bodyguards are alive and well. Was that just a dream? But I was so sure. Prince Sail claims he'll change things at the next banquet. Lazarus smokes a healthy drug created by Basho, while Tyson talks about true world peace. Major heads to Wobble's room, as Tubeppa wonders how to get rid of the guard sent in by the higher-up queens. Serednich's Nen training goes very well. In fact, he's a genius at it. Zhang Lei then offers two of his personal guards to help Kurapika in guarding Prince Wobble. Koven Toba tells Sokka to accompany Sakata and Hashido. Prince Camilla tells her mom that they'll kill Prince Benjamin first, and then Prince Halkenberg. She thusly orders her mom to get close to Prince Halkenberg. One of Prince Benjamin's soldiers listens in on the conversation with his Nen ability. He intends to gather physical evidence of the assassination plot. That way, they can confront her. Kurapika returns with the new guards. Slaka and Baba Manya conspire to monitor on Zhang Lei's guards. Elsewhere on the boat, a man notices that Crollo looks ready to kill someone. Mayor arrives at Prince Wobble's room. Kurapika wants all the bodyguards present for the meeting to ensure the exchange of information is of equal value. Baba Manya wants the queen and prince present during the meeting as well. Shimano and I will look for a bug. If we find one, we'll capture it, thinks Bill. Mayor arrives in the room, ready to begin the conversation. And so the Nen Beasts are living beasts that possess Nen abilities, born from the jar ceremony. They use the prince's auras as their energy source, and since the princes are their host, they have a duty to protect them, says Kurapika. Kurapika then notices a cockroach on the wall. I can't let this chance go, but I can't reveal or rather, the queen's power, says Kurapika. Baba Manya notices that something seems off. Queen Oito instructs the guards to dispose of the bug post-haste. Kurapika orders Bill to capture the cockroach with Nen. I'll use that cockroach to showcase Nen, says Kurapika. Of course, with a little falsehood thrown in. Kurapika states that Bill will manipulate the cockroach with his Nen, but in reality, he'll create a distraction while Oito controls the cockroach. Here I go, says Bill. Oito activates the little eye as Bill fools everyone with his theatrics. Oito now has control of the target. Oito activates the little eye as Bill fools everyone with his theatrics. Oito now has control of the target. She goes down to rest as Bill asks if they have any request. Baba Manya wants it to fly around the room and land on his finger. The cockroach follows all of Bill's commands. Kurapika states that gaining the use of Nen in a short amount of time is possible. In fact, in 2 weeks, they could learn the very fundamentals. Furthermore, he will teach anyone who wishes to participate. Kurapika deduces that Baba Manya is using N on the entire room, and he might eventually find out that it was in fact the queen who used the ability just now. Meanwhile, Oito uses the cockroach to look in on the 13th Prince's room. Queen Oito writes down notes about the 13th Prince's security detail. Due to Emperor's time being activated for an extended period of time, Kurapika starts to feel a physical strain on his body. The cockroach makes its way to the 12th Prince's room, as Oito sees a sight that horrifies her. Prince Momozi is being killed! You have to stop him, quick! Kurapika tells her to calm down, but Oito is in no mood to listen to him, as she wants to save Momozi. Turns out Momozi was strangled to death, as Oito sobs on the bed. The 6 guards ordered to watch over Momozi are said to be court-martialed. Sakata then wonders why Momozi's Guardian Sacred Beast didn't protect her. Guardian Sacred Beasts draw their power from the user, and if Momozi was sleeping, that means the beast was in a weakened state. Despite this being a survival contest, Oito still feels terrible that one of the other princes was killed. Bill tells Kurapika they'll receive bodyguards from 10 of the other princes to monitor their actions. Bill states that the other princes will likely send multiple guards to learn Nen from Kurapika, so Kurapika decides to set a limit of 2 people. He then collapses to the ground, likely exhaustion from using Emperor's time. Hanzo beats himself up for not saving Prince Momozi. He deduces that the culprit used a clone to commit the murder, and he'll stop him next time. Over to Serednich, Theta says, I can't believe it. In just half a day, he's managed to gain a working command of Gyo. Serednich heard about the message from Prince Wobble's guards, stating that he could teach Nen in just 2 weeks, which is vastly different from Theta's claim that it will take 6 months.
You know, one thing I hate the most in this world is a lying bitch. So can I trust you? Says Serednich. Yes, replies Data as the Guardian Beast stares her down. It's been 18 hours since departure. Will there be a light at the end of the voyage? After resting for a bit, Krapka gets up and finds out that the Queen passed out around the same time he did. Because Emperor's time has been running for the last 12 hours, Krapka lost about 5 years from his lifespan. Krapka determines that Emperor's time has a time limit of 3 hours of continuous use. Over that, then he blacks out. Krapka tells Oito to concentrate her efforts on monitoring Serednich for now. Despite her unease, she decides it's in the best interest of Prince Wobble to do so. Oito directs the cockroach to Serednich's room, but his sacred guardian beast blocks its path and eats it. Oito then deactivates the stealth dolphin. She then says, "Don't you think you can teach me Nen as well?" Krapka states that since he transferred the Nen ability to Oito, it forcibly awakened her latent abilities. 16 people arrive at Prince Wobble's room to learn Nen from Krapka. Serednich commands his guards to kill everyone in the room if they do not learn Nen within 2 weeks. Just then, an unknown person says, "I'll activate Silent Majority." The only people who can see Silent Majority's doll is a user and the one being possessed. Krapka calls out Muhan's coarse nature, claiming it's a reflection of Serednich's personality. Muhan becomes enraged, causing Krapka to pull out his gun. As an FYI, if Silent Majority fails to kill someone here, it will rebound and kill its user. Furikov determines that Krapka is a conjurer based on the way he held his gun with his non-dominant hand, keeping his dominant hand free so he could use his ability if need be. Meanwhile, Bill continues with Queen Oito's Nen training. Baba Manya then removes his N for unknown reasons. If someone distracts everyone's attention again, commence attack, says the unknown person. Krapka then says, "Among the 16 of you, is there anyone that can already use Nen? Please raise your hands." Furikov and Bella Rain raise their hands. Labari wonders why they would attend as she looks over at Silent Majority. She's noticed. Excellent. Now go on. Get everyone's attention. Over there! Look! There's a weird woman standing right over there! Perfect. Attack! Berrigan begins to suffocate. It turns out there are 4 snakes in total that are surrounding his body, and they can suck the blood out of his entire body in 11 seconds. Sakata fires a gun at the snakes and tells everyone to get back. Bellaraint then says, "He could have still been breathing, but you're the one that killed him." Notice the heart at the end of this statement. Kind of familiar to someone else's speech bubbles, but that's a topic for another day. I've got to find out the assassin that's hiding among us, thinks Krapka. Labri is placed under arrest under suspicion of murdering Berrigan. The Supreme Court dispatches investigators to room 110. It is now the second day of the voyage. Krapka denies the possession of weapons and gives everyone until 10 o'clock to decide if they want to stay. Krapka then uses his dowsing chain to confer that Bill and Shimano are not the culprits. He then contemplates the notion that if one prince withdrew from the succession, that all the sacred beasts might vanish. Krapka separates the guards into 3 groups, with Furikov and Bellurante supervising the proceedings. In Tier 5, a mafia group asks for payment for the cafeteria. The Phantom Troop appear and easily defeat them. It turns out that the 3rd prince is affiliated with the Shuyu family, the 4th prince with the II family, and the 7th prince with the Shuei family. On the next collection day, which is Saturday, the Phantom Troop plans to meet with the kickback collector so they can gain access to the higher tiers. You find guys above 190 centimeters and write down their room number, says Finks. Elsewhere, Krullo meets Machi. All the members of the Spider want to kill Hisoka, and Krullo is certain that he's on the ship. King Nasubi stares at the corpse of Momozi, saying she's become the foundation for the Great Tree of Kakin. Several people in Krapka's training program can use Nen, but are not self-aware that they can do so. Queen Psycho refuses to answer any of the court's questions, as she's placed under 72-hour surveillance. Biscuit and Hanzo notice that Miriam's Nen Beast is growing bigger, and, what's more, at an accelerated pace, due to Momozi's death. Hanzo creates a double with his Nen ability, which is called Hanzo Skill 4. He then avenges Prince Momozi's death, attempting to make it look like a suicide. Tyson's guardian spirit avoids Prince Benjamin's soldier. Krapka ends his training session with the guards. Yuhirai, Prince Helkenberg's guard, explains that the prince found them all unconscious, and a feather mark appeared on the back of all their hands. The guards have no memory of losing consciousness, though. Krapka states that this is the work of a manipulator who can manipulate memory. Krapka determines that Yuhirai is in a state of half-awakening with his aura. Krapka states that the lower-rank princes need to band together, otherwise, they risk getting picked off one by one. I'll make an appeal to the other princes through the Hunter Association. Hanzo notices that his body is missing along with Biscuit. He then notices that Miriam's Nen Beast is smaller, but more menacing. The beast then readies an attack. Camilla is heading out to kill Prince Benjamin. "You assist me, or you die here." "Lady Camilla, this is not my idea of a joke," says Musa. Turns out he recorded their entire conversation, and will shoot her if she takes one step closer. Camilla uses Zetsu to conceal her aura. Musa fires his gun at her, killing her on the spot. Is she dead? Just then, an enormous cat surrounds Muse's body. It squishes him and uses its tail to revive Prince Camilla. The cat that's lived 1,000,000 lives. After death, it activates, taking the attacker's life and using it to resurrect its owner. She orders her guards to burn Muse's belongings. On her way to room 1001, Camilla shoots down the 2 guards. Well, Furikov managed to evade death using his Nen. Camilla confronts Benjamin, firing several bullets at him. Benjamin defends himself with his aura. Furikov arrests Camilla, but she claims she'll torture his entire family. He claims that he has no family, except for Prince Benjamin. Muse's Nen ability was activated on Camilla, which transmits all her words and actions to him. Since he died though, his ability was transferred to Prince Benjamin through his Nen ability. His ability is called Benjamin Baton. He receives the ability of his loyal soldiers who died in battle. Hanzo attempted to get into Momozi's corridors, but he's blocked off. He then visits Kurapika. Shimano receives a call from the commander of the 13th Prince's bodyguards. Hanzo rushes back to find them, but unfortunately, no one is there. The man on the phone, Welge, wants to ask Kurapika something. Hanzo returns to Kurapika, reporting that room 1013 is empty. Kurapika determines that the living quarters for the 13th Prince has been transported through the use of Nen. Welge brushes us off and demands info regarding the 12th Prince's assassination. Kurapika states he knows the culprit, as Welge agrees to have the Hunter Association investigate the outside of the door. Unfortunately, he was lying, and doesn't believe a word that Kurapika is saying. Kurapika reveals that the culprit was Tufty, and he committed suicide. Kurapika tells Sakata about the situation in room 1013. It's been 37.5 hours since departure, and the craziness is just beginning. There's a detailed chart for each prince, and there's security detail for completeness. You can look this over on your own time. A Nen door appears before Prince Fugetsu, leading her through a tunnel that ends at Prince Kacho's bed. Melody notices Kacho's irregular heartbeat and checks in on her. She then offers to teach her about Nen. Rihan, Prince Benjamin's soldier assigned to Prince Sail, analyzes the prince's Nen beast. It exhales white smoke, and the more you breathe it in, the more favor you gain for the prince. Rihan decides to use his predator ability, which, once he chooses a target, a predator begins to grow inside of him. The strength of the predator comes from how well he analyzes his target's abilities. Zhongli's sacred beast ejects a coin out of its mouth, with the number 1 inscribed upon it. No one knows where the coin came from, except for Koventoba, Prince Benjamin's guard. Prince Tyson's Eyewogs collect aura from its host, and in return, bestow happiness to them. Their amount of happiness is transformed into passionate readership, and following the teachings of Tyson. If they break the teachings of Tyson, harsh punishment shall be dealt. Prince Camilla's Nen Beast allows her to control people when certain conditions are met. Prince Tubepa's Nen Beast can synthesize various drugs and chemicals. Lazarus's beast can conjure a trap based on its target's desire. Shikaku, Prince Benjamin's soldier assigned to Halkenberg, surmises that when Halkenberg's guards synchronize themselves, they're able to create a massive amount of aura. Halkenberg's Nen Beast allows for a group to exceed their limitations through symbiotic fellowship. Shikaku wants to eliminate Halkenberg, but his Nen Beast has been keeping a constant watch. The beast also has the ability to erase and rewrite memories. Shikaku requests 2 more people to help with Prince Halkenberg. Halkenberg then goes to appeal to his father to stop the succession war. If another victim is claimed while I sit by and do nothing, it's the same as if I just let them die. Prince Fugetsu can't materialize the Nen door from before. Hanzo's ethereal body returns to its original, as Biscuit scolds him for staying up all night watching over it. Verge asks Queen Savente not to send Bellarine to Kurapika's Nen training after Byringer's death. Biscuit and Hanzo offer to teach the workers Nen, but Verge disbelieves magic tricks. Biscuit showcases her Nen ability to him. Verge then marvels at her beautiful body, and requests that she teach him Nen. He then agrees to have Bellarine go to Kurapika's training. Biscuit then determines they're inside a one-way Nen space. Bellarine confirms this by stepping outside the room. When he attempts to return, his body begins to disappear. This is likely due to Mariam's Nen Beast. Therefore, Biscuit decides to begin their Nen training, while Bellarine goes to Kurapika's room. Halkenberg passes a letter to one of his father's guards. He'll come back again tomorrow to do the same thing until he can see his father in person. Benjamin and Camilla are tried by the Supreme Magistrate. Camilla's captain of guards claims the killing of Musa and Wolfa was a case of self-defense. Cleopatra orders a search of both rooms 1001 and 1002 by the royal guards. Because of Musa's ability, Benjamin can watch Camilla's every move. Muhan is then killed by silent majority. Bellarine defends Kurapika by stating that Muhan was careless. After defending him against the growing suspicions, he asks to borrow Bill for 10 minutes to report information to Hanzo, Vergai, and the others in room 1013. Prince Kacho and Melody use a device that allows them to converse Morse code. Another coin is ejected from Zhang Li's guardian beast. When the owner of the coin satisfies the conditions, multiple abilities shall be invoked. Fugetsu's Nen door opens up again, which makes her realize it only appears once per day, or every 24 hours. She wants to perform a series of investigations to determine all the ins and outs of this magical ability. With my magic, I'll go save Kacho. A guard informs Serenich that Muhan was killed. Danjin wants to continue his training regardless, since he has a positive impression of Kurapika. Serenich considers the possibility that the Nen training is a condition to activate the ability that killed Muhan. After his training is done, Serenich wants Danjin to bring a gift to prove he is of sound mind. Theta wants to finish Serenich's Zetsu in 11 days. Serenich then performs the water divination test, finding out that he's a specialist, an especially sinister one. Kacho communicates with Melody that she wants to escape off the boat next Sunday with her sister Fugetsu. Kini tells Melody that someone appeared in Kacho's bed, and it most likely was Fugetsu, with some sort of transportation ability. Melody thinks they can all escape with this ability, but she worries that Kacho's guardian sacred beast still hasn't shown itself. Meanwhile, the Phantom Troop gathers together to discuss their hunt for Hisoka. By the way, the newest member of the Spiders is Illumi Zoldyck. Each of the Kaken's 3 mafias control one of the general passenger tiers. To move between these tiers, one needs official means through the Royal Army, or unofficial means through the Mafia. Chrollo then instructs Illumi to introduce himself. Hello, I'm Illumi. On Hisoka's request, I have joined the Spiders. Hisoka had contracted me to kill himself. Upon killing him, he'll attain a reward. A group from the Cha-Ar mob family tells Chrollo and his crew to leave, but he declines. Cha-Ar heard about the actions in Yorknew and wants to work together with them. He'll give him a ticket to move freely between the floors, but Chrollo is not interested in joining their mafia. Chrollo states he'll head to the first floor, but wishes to kill Hisoka first. I want to have a party, but there's no cake. Once you get it, we'll all meet again, and we'll all dine together at the table. Now, bring me Hisoka's head. The Spiders split up, except for Bono and Shizuku, who choose to team up with the boss. Bono reveals an ability that allows him to transform into various things. Shizuku wants Chrollo to read her fortune to uncover some clues, but he no longer possesses that ability, implying that Neon is now dead. That's quite a callback, but if you don't remember, she's from the Yorknew Yark, that book of yours, boss. It's pretty much like a death note, isn't it? We then see the heads of the Mafia, who all have scars on their face, due to being the illegitimate half-brothers of Nasubi. They instruct their respective lieutenants to find and kill Hisoka before the Phantom Troop. Kenny Wang offers 10 million to anyone with useful information, and another 10 million to whoever finds Hisoka. Just find him, then I'll take it from there. The illegitimate daughter of Nasubi, Morena, wants to tear everything to the ground. Her Nen ability, Contagion, allows the 23 people she infects, including herself, to increase their Nen capacity and power through killing others. If they pass level 20, their own unique ability develops, and upon reaching 100, they become capable of creating their own community. Regular people are worth 1 level, and Nen users are worth 10. If you kill a prince, you will gain 50 levels. Thanks to this scar, I have found my balance. In order to rip down this shithole of a world, I have found some will to live. The Cha-Ar family controls Deck 5, the Shiyu family controls Deck 4, and the Haley family controls Deck 3. The Haley family mediates deals with the upper decks. The Shiyu family focuses on the distribution of people and goods, and the Cha-Ar family controls commodities on the 5th deck. Nobunaga, Finks, and Phaeton head to the warehouse in Deck 5 to retrieve their weapons. A mafia soldier leads them in, but ends up going down a dead end and is later found dead. Mizai questions the lone witness to the murders. The suspect in question ordered her outside of the bathroom, and she complied out of fear. The suspect then locked himself inside the bathroom, and when the army opened up the door, he was gone. Mizai notes that a rat wouldn't fit through the toilet drain pipes, let alone a human. Mizai wonders why the culprit would leave a witness behind, but tells her to go back to her room anyway. Turns out her name is Cashew, and she's part of the Haley organization. In a flashback, Cashew conspired with Luini to cover up the incident by mixing truths with lies. Luini's ability requires that he be in a single room with the door closed. Once activated, he can open up the floor or the wall of the room and travel to another location. He can return to the original room, but if the door is open, his abilities reset. At the warehouse, Finks, Nobunaga, and Phaeton discover that the guards have all vanished. They see a trail of blood, and Nobunaga determines whoever did this wants a confrontation to break out amongst them. Upon thinking about it, Nobunaga says, without a doubt, that was someone playing games with us. The three follow the blood to a corridor with a locked door. Wang, the underboss of the Cha-Ar family, blocks their escape. Were you the ones that attacked our warehouse keepers? Meanwhile, Franklin makes no attempt to search for Hisoka, since he's aiming to kill them anyway. He then says Hisoka wasn't their only reason for boarding the ship, as they're here to steal something else. Wang is then given a radio update of what happened, and now believes that the culprit is a hitman from another family. Fink suggests that the culprit has some sort of spatial transportation Nen ability. Wang wants to crush the Phantom Troop, but on the surface, he offers an alliance. Mise states that the killing wasn't done because of cabin fever, but for sacrificial reasons. He suspects that the killings have something to do with the seed urn ceremony for the succession of the next king. Mise states that the princes are granted immunity for all of their actions, except for killing other princes. To enhance their powers, the killings will continue. If left unchecked, paranoia and fear will set in, leading to the Black Whale's demise. Because of the lack of security on the lower decks, they need to act quickly to end the serial killings. The fuse that burns towards destruction. Somehow, I get the feeling it's much shorter than I ever imagined. Wang shows the three spiders the photograph of the man who entered the warehouse, but it yields no results. Nobunaga offers to catch the culprit, in exchange for seeing what's inside the vault. The troop finds out they'll pair up with Sudanki and his squad. Sudanki is taken aback by the spiders and wonders if he can get an autograph from them. We then see a general layout of the ship and where all the important parties are located. I'll let you study this on your own time. It is now the 4th day of the voyage. An announcement states a stowaway is in possession of a dangerous weapon. Therefore, everyone is instructed to stay inside of their rooms. The military combs the area and tells Alumi and Kaluto to raise their hands. They show their tickets, and Mizuri wonders why a VVIP like him is in the lower tiers. Alumi states he's here on business. Mise then says, "The spiders, are they here aboard?" "Yes, all of them," says Alumi. Mise offers them a place to stay as he worries about the presence of the spiders. Are the spiders after revenge against Kurapika? Should I tell Kurapika or not? Someone tells Mise that someone was found without an ID. He tells Botobai and Ginta to take care of the Zoldycks for now. Mise then enters the interrogation room to find Prince Fugetsu. Fugetsu has no intentions of talking unless it's to Prince Kucho. Melody receives a phone call from one of Mise's men, confirming her suspicion that Fugetsu has a teleportation ability. He warns her to keep a close eye on the two, as they might be planning an escape. She then relays the information to Kini. Fugetsu thinks about how her twin and her are two parts of the same whole. Fugetsu returns to her mother, but she's placed under 72 hours of surveillance. Melody performs Hyle's Requiem for Kucho and her mother. Queen Psycho asks Melody to perform this piece at the upcoming banquet. The supervisor tells Melody in private that he wants her help, and hopes that the king will change his mind about the succession war. Melody analyzes his heartbeat, considering the possibility that he's being manipulated by Nen. Rihan determines that Prince Sailsail's guardian beast takes effect after 70 hours from the inhalation. The clones of the Nen beast also release smoke, and because it manipulates the affections of others, it's only a matter of time before he has control over the hearts of the entire kingdom. Rihan brings forth the predator, and it consumes the small clone and Sailsail's guardian beast in just one bite. Rihan can't use Nen abilities for the next 48 hours, so he requests to switch places with Yoshihi. Yoshihi, after all, is more suited for assassinations. Yoshihi reports that Fugetsu has a teleportation ability. Because he held back his N, he did not notice that Fugetsu escaped. He did, however, attach a stinger ball to her. He then receives the order to switch places with Rihan. It is now day 5. The stowaway has been captured, and everyone can leave their rooms again. Prince Halkenberg and 5 of his guards pull their weapons out on the security guards in his father's chambers. Halkenberg enters the chambers. "Let's end this, father." "You consented to the ceremony, who?" "No one ever said anything about it being a death match." Halkenberg gives him an ultimatum, but his father states that the succession war is out of his hands at this point. "Through revolution, I will stop this royal succession war myself. Farewell, father." The bullet stops in midair. King Nasubi states he cannot die until the ceremony is complete. The king's butler states that Halkenberg and his men will not be punished for the incident. Halkenberg attempts to commit suicide, but his Nen beast catches the bullet. King Nasubi reminds him that this war is a choice between protecting his siblings or the people of Kakin. "If you say we don't need a king, then become king first. Then say that." Benjamin informs Shikaku about what happened, but tells him that the king is safe. Benjamin informs him to kill Halkenberg and take his ability. Shikaku activates Coldcept, forming a card to protect himself. Halkenberg fires an arrow at Shikaku, piercing through his shield. Though the arrow can't be intercepted or blocked, it requires the exchange of the will of one of his men. "Prince, give me your command," says Shikaku, as we see the specter of the dead guard standing behind him. "This is the second time that along with a rumbling came a massive swelling of powerful aura," says Kurapika. Despite his concerns, he reminds himself to stay calm, and to avoid being his own worst enemy. Elsewhere, Prince Sailsail appears to be dead. It is now the 8th day of the voyage, 8 p.m., and the banquet begins. So it's finally the day of the banquet. 90 minutes until we carry out our plan, thinks Melody. The first and second prince are not in attendance for the banquet. Various performances are seen. The servants who left room 1013 won't be able to return to the Nen space. Biscuit wants to move the hunters to the real room to take the load off of the servants. Miriam takes a liking to Biscuit as the two play with each other. Kacho, Fugetsu, and Melody are next up to perform. Melody begins her performance, which metaphorically transports everyone to a serene mountain with wild flowers. As she plays, Kini takes the twins to the lifeboats. "Go! Hurry!" says Kini. "Thank you," replies the twins. The lifeboat takes off as Kini looks down at a picture of his wife and daughter. They died 2 years ago, and he's been searching for a suitable place to die ever since. Kini thusly shoots himself in the head. "We're almost at the exit! The plan worked!" Unfortunately, a mysterious presence prevents them from exiting the ship. Fugetsu forms a door and goes inside. She panics when she doesn't see her sister, but Kacho opens up the door. The two make their way back to the ship through the tunnel. Turns out their Nen beasts are cooperative. Fugetsu controls the departing trip, and Kacho controls the return trip. Kacho's Nen beast is called Without You. If one of the two dies, it takes the form of the deceased one and stays with the other until death. And as it turns out, the real Kacho is dead on the boat. So Fugetsu is with the Nen beast. A flashback prior to the banquet shows Wang introducing Tahao to the 3 members of the Phantom Troop. Tahao is the vice boss to the Cha-Ar family, and the military advisor to Lazarus's army. There's over 300 missing workers, and Wang believes that the hitman from Tier 3 is the one responsible. Fink says they're looking for Hisoka, but if they allow them, they can eliminate the hitman for them. Fink says the hitman has a teleportation ability, and he's interested in this door. It turns out that this door is the one that leads to the upper decks. Serednik might be worried about Morena, since she recently took over as the boss. Tahoe states that if Morena is not on deck 1, then an all-out conflict will ensue. That's because mafia bosses must strike a deal with one another within 24 hours, if they're on their own turf. But if they're not on their own turf, they are exempt. And it's been 2 days since the first murder, so if she's not on deck 1, it's trouble. If the spiders take out the hitman, they'll be at war with the Haley family. Nobunaga says if they kill Morena, this might make Serenich happy, and he'll be grateful to them, which could work out to their advantage. Wang and Tahao worry about the plan though. The 3 illegitimate heirs live in lavish estates that are in line with the queen's. However, they are bound to be obedient to the royal authority. Serenich confirms that Morena is not in her lavish corridors, and has probably been in the lower tiers since they boarded. Serenich tells his guards to search for Morena in the lower decks. He then resumes his Nen training, conjuring a specialist Nen beast. He now has a guardian sacred beast and a Nen beast he can conjure on his own. Theta wants to push his limits, and stresses that mastery of Zetsu is the key to mastering Nen. Theta wants him to shut off his aura for an hour, but the Guardian Sacred Beast gives her a menacing glare. "I'm not lying about anything. Now get out of my way." Serednik begins training as Theta thinks, like this: "I could still do it. Tomorrow." Serednik practices Zetsu as Theta contemplates how she'll off him. After a brief distraction, the prince enters his Zetsu once again. Theta sends a small bubble of aura toward him, but he doesn't notice. Theta draws her gun, lamenting the fact that the prince wasn't a kinder person, since he has immense talent, and it would be interesting to see how he cultivates it. She then fires a single bullet through Serednik's head. "And then, I will be following along right after." The prince's body disappears as the guards tell Theta not to move. "This was just part of our training. There's no issue here," says Serednik. "Well, Theta, how was my Zetsu? I didn't even flinch to your gunshot, right?" Theta collapses to the ground in a state of panic. "The next time that you answer the prince's questions falsely, you will cease to exist as a human," says the Guardian Sacred Beast. A guard tells Serednik that time skipped during the musical performance, and the prince wants to invite Melody to his corridors. Theta has a nightmare of Prince Serednik. Upon waking up, Salkov shows her what the beast did to her face. Salkov says that if she goes against the warning, a fate worse than death awaits her. Likely, the beast is keeping her around to use her as a pawn in the future. Theta realizes what she saw earlier was not reality, but she's not sure though when the illusion began. An investigator questions Melody about the incident with the twins. Through his questioning, Melody determines she's being kept here to keep safe from the dangerous princes. The twins will also be questioned in extensive detail until the truth is revealed. In Halkenberg's estate, they analyzed the brainwaves of Sumidri, the man that was sacrificed by Halkenberg.
They posit that he possessed Shikaku's body, but wonder what happened to Shikaku's consciousness. Halkenberg comes up with 4 possibilities. Halkenberg has found a new resolve to compete in the succession war. He shares a hypothesis with his men, but we, as the readers, are left in the dark. He then asks if Sumidori can do something for him, which he agrees to. He heads to Lazarus's corridors, saying, "Long live Prince Benjamin!" and he thusly shoots himself in the head. Benjamin hears about the suicide. He recalls Kanjidal from room 1007. In Halkenberg's corridors, Sumidori wakes up, with the prince requesting his affiliation and his ID number. At Krapka's Nen class, they feel the rumbling of aura, and determine it's either coming from Prince 9, 7, or 5. Krapka determines it's an emitter, and wonders what could be going on. He then begins the water divination ceremony. He tells everyone to keep their abilities concealed, saying it's top secret. Therefore, water divination will be done in a separate room, with only Bill, Krapka, and the person doing the divination. Sotobi objects to this, but Krapka explains that the information on their Nen abilities is being exchanged for the training they're receiving. If they cannot accept this condition, they can leave right now. Baba Manya says Rihan is focusing on Tubepa's Nen Beast, but Furikov says that Tubepa's refusing to show himself. Prince Wobel's Nen Beast still hasn't shown itself. Elsewhere, Salkov can't believe that Serednik is progressing so quickly. By the way, recently, I've been surprised at the changes in my own state of mind. I just find two-faced women so cute. We now have a flashback to Serednik's Zetsu training, but this time, from his perspective. He notes that he can turn off his node slowly to maintain stability. Okay, I've closed all. Eh? The hell is this? Theta asks what's on his left shoulder, just like before. He starts again. A dream? What the hell was that? Serednik is stimulated awake with the same question. He asks if she noticed anything strange just now. The flow of the conversation makes no sense. Theta's words are exactly the same as I heard in the dream just now. Serednik determines that he just saw a prophetic vision. He noticed that when he heard a static noise, that was the start of his vision. He closes his eyes as the vision starts again. As long as he maintains Zetsu, the vision continues. The first 10 seconds right after the ability's activation is 10 seconds in a flash. It foretells the 10 seconds starting from the ability's activation. And when the 10 seconds in a flash is over, the vision of the world 10 seconds in the future continues in real time. Theta drops a cup of coffee to startle him, which he sees 10 seconds before it actually happens. Here's my theory. Only I can change my foretold future. The same events occur in reality, but Serednik maintains his Zetsu. She tells him to do it again. He enters Zetsu as his Nen Beast begins to vanish. He predicts the ball of aura she throws at him. He then opens his eyes and begins talking to her. He then wants to see how long he can maintain this. He notices her drawing her gun, wondering what she's doing. He quickly moves out of the way, but from Theta's perspective, he's still standing there. The hell is with this power? This is so much fun! The event plays out like before. Serednik is blown away again. Well, figuratively speaking. He sees the guards come in, and says he'll ask Theta about her reasons for doing this at a later date. The guards tell Serednik about the time skip, as he requests that Melody come over. He contemplates his ability, 10 seconds in a flash, comparing it to a parallel world. He can also use this ability in succession. However, it still takes time to activate his Zetsu, and he has to maintain his concentration. As long as I can master Zetsu, I will conquer this succession war. Sotobi, Mayor, and Longhi worry about giving Krapka full reign like this. Furikov states that if Krapka tries to manipulate anyone through Nen, they'll arrest him here on the spot. Baba Manya considers the possibility that Krapka can semi-force open a person's nodes, which means that he could mix his aura with the user. It's also possible he's misleading them to cover for Bill, who could possibly be the real master manipulator. Ladiolis' aura has increased dramatically in a short period of time. Krapka tells everyone to keep the results private until after the testing is done. Mayor, you're next. Mayor walks up to the table with the glasses of water on it. Krapka is using this test to determine that the Nen abilities have been awakened in him. Inside the cup is a plant seed, which is irregular for this type of test. Although Nen is usually acquired slowly, one can forcibly acquire it by receiving a Nen attack. Krapka clarifies that this is taboo, and attacks can also entail healing abilities and lending abilities. Bill is an enhancer type user, so he can hasten growth in his target. The seed then starts growing rapidly. Krapka will borrow Bill's ability and lend it to Mayor. The process will semi-force Nen abilities to awaken in someone with them. Mayor exits the room with a notable increase in his aura. Baba Manya determines that Nen awakening is one of Krapka's abilities, but he likely has more, one for each of the chains on his finger. Mayor is startled by his levels of vitality. Baba Manya and wonders how far Krapka will take this training. Krapka gives Yuri Bill's ability through Stealth Dolphin. This ability is being lent and is not her own, but now she's been awakened. Krapka wants to run this class a second and a third time, and wants her to relay the message to Prince Kacho and Queen Psycho. Bill thinks this newfound power will corrupt some people, and that power could eventually come back to bite them. Krapka thanks Bill for revealing his ability. Hashito and Sakata burst in. Hashito wants to take the test to protect his prince, but Krapka denies, saying that he hasn't learned the basics yet. Sakata then considers doing the basic training, considering how important Nen is. Mayor returns to Tubeppa, informing him that the 14th prince and the 3rd prince are in a tight alliance, and that the Nen training actually worked. Rihan notes that Tubeppa's Nen beast still hasn't shown itself. Rihan notices Mayor's huge leap in ability due to Karapka's training. He contemplates going after Karapka, but worries that he has 5 abilities that could counter the Predator. Balsamilka worries about Rihan, but can't give him any advice, as that would reduce the effectiveness of his Predator. He then wonders why Shikaku would commit suicide. Tubeppa thinks that Sail Sail is dead, considering he's a fame whore and would not miss out on the live performance at the banquet. She is thusly focused on finding out the cause of the death, and gives a flash drive to one of her assistants. She'll have to move carefully to avoid suspicion, though. She worries that Mayor isn't experienced enough to deal with the Nen threat, and thusly realizes that Karapka might be an ideal ally. It is day 10, and Karapka felt the 4th rumble. And what's more, the interval between the rumbles is shortening. A flashback to 10 a.m. on the 9th day shows Kanjido reporting the events that transpired in Lazarus' corridors. He explains that Shikaku shouted, "Long live Prince Benjamin," and fired a gun against his temple. It is assumed that Shikaku was forced to do this against his will. Balsamilka agrees with this assessment for the most part, but has 3 problems with it. To reach Prince Benjamin, Prince Halkenberg would have to blast through rooms 11 and 13 to reach him. Second, he worries why suicide was chosen, given that he could have used it to assassinate one of the other princes. And 3, can fellow princes actually kill one another in the first place? Balsamilka determines that Nen beasts cannot kill each other. Being a manipulator, Shikaku should have manipulated himself first to block the enemy's attack. To determine why the suicide happened, Balsamilka orders Kanjidal to keep a close eye on the actions surrounding room 1007. We're now in the present again. Benjamin and Balsamilka feel the 4th rumble. Suddenly, a voice that keeps breaking up on the radio says, "It's not working at all, and Prince Halkenberg is invincible." Benjamin assumes that Halkenberg's power comes from using his whole team. Balsamilka deduces that it involves sacrificing one of his men. Benjamin wonders if he should transport Muse's owl from Camilla to Halkenberg, but Balsamilka advises against it. 5 men from a National Naval Regulation Board, including Steiner, confine Halkenberg. With him separated from his men, this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to eliminate him. In Tyson's quarters, Guilano is seen reading the Book of Tyson. Aizunavi warns him against getting too attached, and that their job includes protecting her until they get to the new continent. Guilano begins his shift as he's welcomed with a birthday cake and applause. In Lazarus' corridors, Kanjidal is unsuccessful in getting information from the other guards. He theorizes about a possible scenario in which Shikaku killed himself. He concludes that Halkenberg is a great danger and worries that he might get through courts unscathed. He bemoans the democratic process and says that if it was up to him, he'd pull the trigger and think about the excuse later. He then approaches Basho. Basho states that Duazel's men are plotting something and that they need to be watched closely. He also says that Duazel's men are hiding their men. Through an internal monologue, Basho reveals that he was providing false information and believes that there's an ability that activates through Shikaku taking his own life. Camilla sits under surveillance in the VVIP quarters. "I swear, I will curse you to death," says one of Camilla's guards as she looks at a picture of Benjamin. The Kaken had a tradition in the past named sacrificial burials, involving afterlife companions. The companions would supervise princes in the afterlife, preventing them from torturing or cursing the king of Kaken. These companions were part of the Untouchables, the lowest rung on the ladder of the caste system. With the afterlife program gone, Camilla gave the Untouchables a chance to join the military through her private guard. These assassins are assigned to the various princes, and curse them whenever they get the chance. Sarael, the Camilla guard assigned to Prince Wobble, wonders who they should target first. The 2 Untouchables who are assigned to Momozi and Sail Sail are instructed to find out if the enemy have any Nen Exorcist. Plus, cursing the princes will be difficult, since they have Nen Beast. Sarael wants to attend Karapka's next round of Nen classes, and curse Prince Wobble while she's there. Zhanglei gives a coin to Tempturi for completing his Nen training, claiming that he's the first one to receive one. Koven Toba thought he was the first one to receive a coin, and notices that the number on his coin now says 10 instead of 1. It turns out Temptary also has a coin with the number 10 on it. Zhang wonders what kind of Nen power will be bestowed to him, but all he can do now is sit and wait. He suspects, though, that it won't reach its maximum effectiveness until he's king. Zhang then greets the boss of the Shu Yu family. He comments that he's already lost 3 siblings, but Onir states that when Nasubi did it, he was the only survivor. Zhang inquires about the guardian beast and Nen. Onir says that good luck sleeps and waits. Onir calls Hinrig, instructing him to search for Hisoka and kill Morena, the boss of the Hailey family. The resistance begins. "We're gonna crush the Hailey," says Hinrig. Him and his compatriots go on a manhunt. Lynch and Zakaru question a Hailey member, but he distracts them as another one slashes Zakaru's neck. Hinrig finds out the Hailey are registered as civilians, and if they harm one, the military will be forced to act. "That bitch you got in charge ain't gonna get away with breaking the rules." Zakaru activates his Nen, Bloody Mary, to subdue the Hailey member. Lynch uses body and soul to question the other member while giving him a thrashing. Hinrig uses biohazard to turn the soldiers' guns into snakes, and subsequently blows off their heads. Hinrig returns to his comrades as a soldier informs them that he's willing to look the other way, provided they never return to Tier 3 again. Hinrig pays off the guards, but it's not long before they're in for a nasty surprise. A scheme that ended in friendly fire. Now, as many of the passengers are wondering what just happened, Lynch and Zakaru decide that they're going to continue searching for Hisoka. Hinrig says that he'll be counting on them, however, he does not want them to act without his say-so. Meanwhile, he plans on trying to luring out some of the Hailey members while he tracks down the girl. Lynch and Zakaru then enter a corridor, and Zakaru uses his ability and causes numerous drops of blood to move along the wall. And it turns out that the blood has tiny eyes on it, and he's using it to find Hisoka. Meanwhile, we see Hinrig walking with a bunch of pigeons. Hinrig then confiscates a video camera for his own interest. Hinrig uses his biohazard ability to transform the camcorder into a small cat, which allows the cat to still have the ability to video record stuff for Hinrig. We then see that 3 Hailey members have spotted Hinrig and want to take him down. He's all alone, the bastard is underestimating us. He doesn't stand a chance if it's 3 against 1. One of the members then transforms his hand into a hammer and says that nothing beats the tingling feeling when you're about to take a life. He then states that he will do anything for him and Morena. However, when he goes in for the attack, he notices that a handcuff goes around his hand, and that a pigeon is attached to the other side. He blocked me by handcuffing me to a pigeon! The pigeon on the other side turns into a handcuff and locks up both of his hands from the rear. The other 2 Hailey members come in, however, Hinrig has many other pigeons that he can use. The 2 members start shooting, but the pigeons come in for defense. Normal bullets aren't gonna cut it. They're made from plain old handcuffs, but they're reinforced with Nen. The member with the hammer then transforms his hand into a drill, allowing him to escape and go after Hinrig. With little time, Hinrig is forced to block with his hand. However, it goes through very painfully. Another pigeon locks onto his foot with a handcuff, and then locks that one onto his hand. "I'll chop them up with my axe! A stupid chain can't stop me!" However, Hinrig catches his hand and says, "That ain't happening." Hinrig finishes up the job as the other 2 Hailey members decide to escape and decide to report back to Morena. Soldiers then try to calm down the civilians, as we see that Padaili, the man that was just killed, seems to still be alive. The soldiers then approach the 2, and Padaili says that everything is okay. Padaili is then free to go as we see him walk away. One of the soldiers then approaches Hinrig and says, "How much are you willing to fork over for the location of the Hailey boss?" And he says about 50 million. The soldier then demands 30 million up front that is non-negotiable. Hinrig then agrees to the demands and says that he'll fetch the money. We then see Misha Hao on Padaili, an ex-member of the Shiyu family who uses post-mortem Nen ability. Apparently she's referred to as the zombie girl. Her ability manifested after she died. Whenever a family member is involved in a killing, she appears to inconspicuously dispose of the body. Once that's accomplished, she vanishes. Lynch and Zakaru then find a man that they believe to be Hisoka. Lynch decides to punch the man in the abdomen, and he curls up into a ball. The Shiyu is on a manhunt. "Get in the way and you're dead," says Lynch. The 2 then continue looking around until they run into a man that looks like Hisoka. "Hey, you Hisoka?" "You are," says the man. "Lynch. You?" She then goes to punch him in the abdomen, however, she's the one that gets knocked out. "Oops, my bad. I couldn't help slipping in a counterblow. So, what are you after? A nervous Zachary then tells Hisoka that their family is searching for him. If you want to know more, why not follow me? Hisoka then smiles in a devilish fashion. Elsewhere on the ship, an old woman tells Sudanki that gunshots were apparently heard in Area East Plaza. He then asks if she has any autograph paper, but she says she only stocks items like tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. It turns out that he wants to get an autograph from the Phantom Troop. The woman tells him that he could try a general store on Tier 1, revealing that they can have requested items delivered to the ship. However, you have to know someone from the upper classes to be able to do this service. Sudanki then regroups with the Cha-Ar family, stating that he has to find Hisoka in 4 days so that he can ask for autograph paper as his reward. Kenny then addresses his men, telling them to look for more information up to Area C, if necessary, and to report their findings to the troop, back at the office. Kenny Wang then wonders if it's better to leave the troop to the Haley family and to focus on finding Hisoka. And as it turns out, Wang is very concerned about Hisoka, as he's aware of him being a floor master at Heaven's Arena. Ideally, what he wants to do is he wants to sit back while the Phantom Troop and the Haley fight each other. And if Hisoka is capable of destroying the Phantom Troop, it would make his job that much easier. Now, inside the Cha-Ar family office in Tier 5, we see Nobunaga, Finks, and Phaeton. They then take a look at the monitors and see an arm that is coming through and is knocking on the door. And it turns out that Luini is just messing with them. Now, as they go into the room, they notice that no one is there. However, a portal is then created in which we see Luini. This isn't like you. It isn't like you at all. You're supposed to betray the Cha-Ar head to the upper decks and murder all those filthy rich bastards. And then he states that the rumors of them being a band of brutal thieves wasn't accurate. And then Nobunaga pulls out his sword, and he looks like he's about to show him no mercy right here. Now, Luini indicates that he doesn't want to fight with the Phantom Troop. The only reason that he's here is to take out the Cha-Ar family. Then he'll move on to the Shiyu family, and finally, the royal family itself. After this is all completed, they'll take control of the ship and wreak havoc on the old world. And to do all this, he wants to band together with the Phantom Troop and burn the world to the ground. And in an instant, Nobunaga takes his sword and drives it right through Luini's forehead. Sorry, I ain't got a clue what you're talking about. If you weren't trying to fight us, then that stuff in the warehouse was just dumb. You want to destroy the world? I'll destroy you. The other Cha-Ar members return to the room and see the dead remains of Luini. By the way, we just decided we're gonna crush the Haley family. After seeing how cool the Phantom Troop really is, Sudanki wants to get an autograph from each one of the members. Elsewhere, we see the Haley members looking at the bottom half of Luini's body. We see Damon, Gelato, Perigol, and Billy. Now they talk amongst themselves about recreating Luini's ability. An emitter and human trafficker named Bacante suggests using his door ability to catch the prey that wander into his trap. A university student, Matavel, says that he's an aspiring emitter and that he'd be down for a projectile ability. Morena then tells the group that every situation is different, but you can trump it all with creativity. If you can't defeat an enemy head-on, binding them or nullifying their ability instead could be quite useful. And she essentially tells them to think about it like a game. Elsewhere, Zachary wakes up in a pile of garbage. Lynch says that was Hisoka. The two then tell Hinrig where Hisoka is located, and he decides to go there right away. He then goes to Theater 8 and sits down to the man that's presumed to be Hisoka. I'll cut to the chase. I have a request. I'm listening, says Hisoka. Could you move to Tier 1 until the Haley and Cha-Ar family's conflict is resolved? I've even found a room in the VIP area. Why? Says Hisoka. The Cha-Ar family and the troop have joined forces against the Haley, and our own Shiyu family is joining the fray. Naturally, if you attack the troop, you'll be our enemy too. However, despite all this, Hisoka is quite fond of chaos. Hinrig tells Hisoka that he wants balance between the families, and Haley is aiming on breaking that balance. Hisoka then asks a blatant question. Mirror the troop. Who do you think will win? Sorry, but I'm on Team Spiders, says Hinrig. Your favorite? I like all of them. You? Now, as Hinrig's about to hand Hisoka the VIP pass, he decides to pull away his hand and says, if they come knocking, I'll have to answer. Elsewhere, the soldier is wondering where Hinrig is. He is then approached by Kenny Wang of the Cha-Ar family. The soldier then reveals that Hinrig wants to find the way to the Haley hideout. Kenny Wang offers to match the amount that Hinrig is paying so that he can also find the location of the Haley hideout. He's also going to offer $5 million to each soldier who finds a member of the Haley family. We'll wipe out every last one of them. You have my word. The soldier's then like, smile zero, ice cold smirk. And he's like, hold on a minute. Isn't your smile cursed? Everyone you smile at dies, right? And Kenny's like, such a rude rumor. Everyone dies eventually, right? Connolly, a Shiyu lieutenant, approaches with a paper bag full of money and says that they can get started once their money and Hinrig arrive. They then meet up with Hinrig. They are then led to room 3101, and supposedly it doesn't have a wall in their toilet. The soldier then knocks on the room as a man comes out. The man is then instructed to sit on the bed as a soldier walks in. However, all of a sudden as the soldier walks in, he disappears, which shocks Kenny Wang and Hinrig. "Oh, he didn't come along. You don't look like you're with the army." "Well, either way, I have nothing to hide, so please come in." Henrik is wondering where the corporal is as he tosses a knife into the room. "Looks like the knife won't disappear. You come here. The next one won't miss." "Understood. At any rate, I have nothing to hide." The old man requests to go to the bathroom. However, Henrik is having none of it. "I don't care if you piss yourself, just get over here." He then tosses a knife right into his thigh. He then claims to be a defenseless old man. "There's not even any blood, old man. Where's your real body?" He claims to be a con man, and the more he would roll around in pain, people would tend to believe him. But since Henrik is not buying his story, the old man evaporates into the air. Kenny Wing then suggests that they leave the Haley family to the Phantom Troop. One of the members then goes in to pick up the knife. However, he disappears. Turns out that the room is a trap that takes you to another location. Kenny then says that the Phantom Troop can handle the trap, as Henrik tells himself that he will follow up on his own leads. Elsewhere, Tashi, the small man that disappeared, gets stabbed right in the neck. "Ah, sweet, I just reached level 21, says Billy. In a different room, an emitter named Terrabellum drops off Tashi's corpse and tells two female members that Vacanti said he directly connected the room to the processing area. The two female members then begin to remove Tashi's clothing as they prepare to dismember his body. Back in Morena's office, she proposes bringing one of Serednik's personal soldiers over to their side. Sodom, an underworld doctor assassin, level 31, then volunteers for the job. Knowing Serednik, he'll definitely want to kill me himself for betraying him. But seeing as the succession war is ongoing, we have no way of telling when he might make his move. In order to keep an eye on his whereabouts, I want to infect one of his soldiers with contagion. She then instructs Ororuji, Garbage Man, and Yokotani, Corrupt Lawyer, to lure in any of Serednik's bodyguards if they can. She then instructs Notre and Souffle to return to room 3131 and report back on the situation in room 3101 from there. Morena then summons Dogman and tells him that he has the most important mission of all, to find one of the guards. "I'm gonna need a few more levels though." And it turns out that Dogman is a pro wrestler and he's level 36. Morena agrees with his assessment and says that he should get up to level 50. Henrik then recovers the video camera that he turned into a cat. We then see some soldiers recover a body. One of the soldiers says that the Haley members were resisting arrest and escaped to this room after shooting at them, so they were forced to break in. And because they never submitted a list of members to public safety, they'll have to treat them as regular civilians. They then state that they want to arrest the boss of the Haley family, Morena Prudo. One of the soldiers is very worried, however, that they might have Nen users and wants to come up with a different plan. Now, he suggests that conventional weapons are not going to be effective in such a battle, and while he says this, he abbreviates Prince Serednik's name, which pisses off his commanding officer. "If you abbreviate Prince Serednik's name again, I'll rip those dopey-looking eyes right out of their sockets." Now, one of the soldiers says that the body that they discovered was already a few days old, postulating that the police and the army deliberately didn't find it during the second sweep. And it turns out that the police and army use discretion when mafias have disputes with one another. He then wonders about the Hunter Association and explains that if they were to investigate the forensics, the tampering would immediately be revealed and potentially cause the association to question Kakin's investigation. However, the female soldier says that the Hunter Association wouldn't get involved because their main jobs are guarding the princes and providing support on Tier 3. He then says that if the Hunters realize the blood ties between the Mafia and the royal family, that they might consider eliminating them to protect their princes. It is then speculated that war could break out between the Kakin Empire and the Mafia, and the soldiers determine that it's very clear that the Haley family is bent on destroying the balance. Now, what's really interesting is that Prince Serednik has remained silent despite Morena's rebellion, which means that he's possibly delaying revenge because he's found a new toy. Now, one of the members thinks that she's referring to his gun assembly and disassembly. Apparently, he was hell-bent on being the military school's fastest record. One of the classmates would argue with him during training. After the award ceremony, the prince shot him in the legs. Oops, that was a secret. And it turns out this is the infamous "you can only talk back if you break my record" incident. And thus, they come to the hypothesis that the reason that Serednik hasn't taken revenge yet is because he's trying to hone his Nen ability. The female soldier then says that the plan to eradicate the Mafia will be kept classified, and personal soldiers will not be privy to the time or details. In addition, access between floors 2 and 3 will be restricted. Now, the reason that these soldiers don't want to join the Prince's Guard or the Royal Army is because it's too much work. Now, after some internal discussions by all the soldiers, we see a flashback that shows Serednik holding a gun after he shot his classmate. The soldiers then determine that Morena is a Nen user. Therefore, in order to protect themselves, they have to avoid her at all cost. Borkson then explains that Nen is a top secret weapon. One of the other female soldiers then wonders if they're able to learn Nen as well. They then want to make contact with the Shiyu and Cha-Ar families to establish a working relationship as soon as possible. I knew it! They're warping! It turns out that the Haley members are using a secret passage that they installed, which means that they're using a Nen ability to access their hideout. Kenny tells the soldiers that they possibly found the secret hideout behind room 3101, and that Nobunaga plans to investigate it with the other 2 Phantom Troop members. Him and Hinrig will track the pair seen on the camcorder footage and try to bring them back alive. We then see Nobunaga, Finks, and Phaeton by the door. A man then opens the door to Phaeton's sword. "So, shall we start here?" says Nobunaga. "No, the door might not be the only trigger. Let's start with the toilet. We were told that the hidden chamber is much larger than this one, so all the rooms here must be connected." Nobunaga then starts with the toilet, as he cuts a rectangle shape into the wall. Phaeton tells the man to go first, as he puts his blade right by his neck. The man then enters the room, as they find out that it's empty. Finks then wonders why they're sending a rookie to confront them, and Nobunaga is wondering that maybe it's a scapegoat play, sacrificing him to make sure the others stay on their toes. After Nobunaga compares himself to the Haley organization, Finks thinks he's stretching it. But Nobunaga's like, "No, we used to be like that in the beginning. Fueled by despair and anger, we were searching for a purpose." We then have a flashback to Meteor City. "Sweet! Finders keepers," says the young Franklin. He's hoping that the videotape is an anime or some kind of action film. If it's in another language, that foreign lecture video was so boring. Shelnark then says that the suspense of not knowing what's on the tape is half the fun. "Guys, we're in for a beating. Machi just spotted us," says Krollo. Uvo then barges in, saying that they stole something from his kingdom. Shelnark begins to taunt him, and Uvo throws something at his head and knocks him over. "Bullseye! 9 deaths left." "Hey Uvo, what kind of idiot calls this place a kingdom? The only cure for that level of stupidity is death. Only dumbasses let their surroundings define them. I'm wherever the hell I say I am," says Uvo. The two begin to punch each other. Krollo then begins to make his escape with the videotape. However, Finks calls him out, with Phaeton riding on the back of the motorcycle. "If it ain't Krollo, what you got there? We're not like that meanie Uvo. Hand it over nicely, and we'll return it later." Krollo then hands over the videotape as Finks rides off. However, it turns out he gave them the wrong videotape on purpose. Krollo then returns to a large church. The priest tells him that more and more kids are being abducted, and to not visit the city outskirts alone. It turns out that the people of Meteor City have no social status. Officially, they do not exist. This made them the prime targets for nefarious individuals. Hundreds died every year before the city gained protection in exchange for providing recruits for the mob. 70% of those casualties were children under 15. As the partnership unfolded, Meteor City's elders developed Nen powers, and the law of retribution was established. Only one life can pay for life. We'll accept anything that you leave here, but don't ever take anything away from us. The spiders were just learning to crawl by the time the city of the fearful became the city of the feared. Krollo then goes to the video room as he meets up with Paku. Unfortunately for Krollo, he finds out that the videotape is blank. In the church's basement, the elders talk about Krollo and how he has great promise. And they also ponder the idea of him resolving the problems plaguing the city. After fast-forwarding 10 minutes, Krollo finds out that the cleanup rangers are on the videotape. Now, because the videotape is in a different language, Krollo wants to do a dubbing of it. "Can you play Clean Up Pink?" says Krollo to Paku. I can't say no to my little bro." "Stop calling me that! I'm older than you," says Krollo. Paku is gonna get a couple of other girls to play the other cast members, as Krollo says that he loves her. Back at the church, Krollo happily presents the scripts to the 3 girls, and Paku can't believe that he finished it in the time for her to find the 2 girls. While this is happening, on the outskirts of the city, 3 men step out of a van as 3 children are seen in the back. The van drives away as Krollo and the girls do their dubbing. The kids get ready for a special screening. "Yo, Krollo, heard you put my video to good use. I'm really looking forward to the after party," says Uvo. Finks then says that if he survives his encounter with Uvo, that he should join him for soccer. All the kids then get ready for the movie to start. As the show begins, everyone is left shocked that the power cleaners are speaking their language, realizing that someone must have redone their voices. Shelnark recognizes the voices and says it sounds like Krollo and Paku. All of a sudden, the sound goes out in the theater, and then the video goes out as well. The kids become impatient as Uvo yells out, "Hurry up and play the rest, you bastard! Or is that all you got, Krollo?" Krollo then lies and says that he was off at the snack bar and had them stop the movie. "Alright everyone, without further ado, let's resume the mission. Give me a countdown from 3. 3, 2, 1! And with that, the movie is back on the screen. Now, because the sound is not working for the movie, Krollo and the girls are going to do the voices live. "You're too late, Cleanup Rangers," says Krollo. "The Gangaroo Monster's dark makeup will turn Cleanup Pink to our side. And you'll be next. Soon your pathetic species will serve the Jet Black King. We'll paint the whole world black." Just then, the cleanup gang uses the clean power combination, Clean Sweep, to save the day. Outside the theater in the forest, Sarasa walks up to Krollo and says, "That was pretty amazing, you bastard! Maybe you ain't so bad after all." Uvo then says, "Next time, let me play the monster." "Krollo, what you did today hit me harder than any punch I've ever taken." The two then shake hands and resolve their differences. We then see a performance in which all the kids are doing the voice acting. The gang then decides that they're going to have to start recruiting people in the future, and in a way that makes them an unofficial group, or a troop if you will. Now the group hopes that they can find more videotapes in the future, but Nobunaga suggests that they could just do a play with a script that Chrollo writes. Uvo then says that he wants to perform elsewhere so he can become the world's greatest villain. Say, where's Sarasa? We then see Sarasa looking for a new video. Nobody else knows about the huge pile of tapes at the corporate dump near Uga Forest. I've memorized how they write Clean Up Rangers, so I just gotta look out for the new episode titles. Now, inside the van with the 3 child hostages, one of the men says that the residents are becoming more vigilant. Security's getting tighter, but they've already hit their quota. That being said, they just want to catch one more for fun. This week's showing of the Special Cleanup Rangers is about to begin. Unfortunately, Sarasa has not shown up. As everyone in the audience gets excited when Chrollo gets on the stage, he's there to give him some rather somber news. He then tells them that the show is postponed because Sarasa has not shown up. It turns out that she's been missing since yesterday, and as many of them already know, child abductions have been increasing as of late. We will now focus on finding Sarasa. That's why we must postpone the show. My apologies, says Chrollo. Other members in the audience then volunteer to help find Sarasa. Uvo and Chrollo then get on a bike as they go to find Sarasa. They then reach the forest as we see Chrollo crying. And there's even a note that's on the tree as well. No, that's not. Someone's gotta check. I'll do it. I'll look, says Chrollo. Hey, what the hell did they write on that paper? Uvo then lowers the bag to Chrollo as he catches it. He then looks into the bag and sees Sarasa's dismembered body, causing him to cry profusely. Answer me, Chrollo. What's on the paper? I won't say, says Chrollo. Don't mess with me. What did those murderous bastards write? I won't say it. I'll take those words to my grave. If you really want to know, read it for yourself. Machi then grabs onto the bag and says, let's hurry up and take her home. It would be too sad to leave her here. It must have hurt so much. We then see Sarasa's body back to normal again as she's being put to rest. It turns out that she's back to normal again thanks to Renko, who did the embalming. Uvo then decides to give the videotape to Sarasa as she's put to rest. Machi then asks Renko if she can do embalming as well. Impossible. It's not a skill I can teach. It's my special ability. Does that ability have something to do with the glow around your body? You can see my aura? Says Renko. Those pretty eyes of yours make my skin crawl, says Renko. If you get permission from your nannies, you're welcome to visit. After they lay Sarasa to rest, Uvo wants to get revenge. However, Chrollo asks him to wait for 3 years. Chrollo speculates that the killers recorded what they did. The crime scene was orchestrated to convey a message. It was just like our play, and those cigarette butts we were standing on was probably the spot that they filmed it from. If these people heard of a way to showcase their art to the world, there's no way they could resist. Chrollo then says that Meteor City will become a safe haven for criminals to pass through. In effect, he's creating a hideout for all the baddies in the world so they can find the ones that they're looking for. Shalnark and the others decide to help Chrollo out with his plans. Now, in order to ensure what happened to Sarasa never happens again, they'll need to offer up their lives. After 3 years, I will take many lives. I will live the rest of my life as a villain, who will make the whole world tremble with fear. Now, Chrollo offers a leadership position to Uvo, but Uvo declines. You're the leader, Chrollo, and with you as the head, I'll follow you until I die. We then see Chrollo age 3 years as the Phantom Troop, i.e. the spiders, are officially born. We are now back in the present. Finks speculates that the old man is the Conjurer's clone, serving as a lookout and the center point for the trap. However, Nobunaga has his doubts, claiming that teleportation uses emission, not conjuring. The Mafia member then opens the door, but finds another one that is locked. Nobunaga realizes that the bathroom setup is a trap, to buy them some time if someone figures out the front door is a trap and decides to break through it. Like they did. They determine that it's safe to enter and have the Mafia man go first. Finks tells him to leave through another door. They then tell him to come back again, but he makes a mad dash. Phaeton then catches up to him and tells him to pick a sword. Nobunaga convinces the man to return. Nobunaga then determines that this is a landmine type of trap, where the trigger is made by applying Nen to 2 or 3 spots. The stronger the landmine type, the closer the user has to be to the entry or exit point. Phaeton takes another Mafia member hostage and forces him into the room, triggering the trap. And with this, it confirms that the trap can be used multiple times, and they could deliberately use it to fight the Haley family. Phaeton wants to go first, but is interrupted by Wang and Hinrig. Hinrig suggests that a stooge take a transmitter into the trap to reveal the Haley's location. He then transforms the transmitter into an oyster and says that the stooge just needs to swallow it. Unfortunately for Nobunaga, he doesn't eat shellfish, and Phaeton won't eat anything someone else has touched. But it turns out that Hinrig already has a stooge, as he swallows the oyster. Hinrig then hands them the receiver as he goes into the trap. The troop begins their search as we see Hinrig in the Haley hideout. After crouching down to avoid any gunfire, he notices that no one is in the room with him. Henrik notices fresh blood as Nobunaga arrives in the room. Nobunaga figured their chances of survival would only go up with him there, as they begin to take action. Nobunaga claims to have found their hideout as he cuts the wall. It's guarded by Nen? Questions Henrik. Yup, replies Nobunaga. Elsewhere, we see Morena with a menacing grin. Henrik opens all the doors, with Nobunaga watching. Shower, bathroom, and 3 toilets. Henrik pushes open the main door and finds a room filled with laundry. What kind of demons are awaiting them? Nobunaga determines that the people in the adjacent rooms were Haley members too. Henrik then opens another door as the two find 9 Haley members sitting and talking to each other. I'm going to assume that this is the Haley base, and that you're the members, says Henrik. Souffle and Terrabellum continue their conversation as if nothing happened. Nobunaga suspects that there's another trap through the door. That's why they're acting so nonchalant. Henrik then chucks a knife at Terrabellum, and it pierces his head. That hurt, says Terrabellum. Terrabellum stands up, stares at Henrik, pulls the knife out, and crushes it. Henrik notices that the blade of the knife had teleported to the can that he was holding. Nobunaga speculates that Terrabellum might be a counter type. Henrik tosses another knife at Terrabellum, but he dodges. If this got stuck in my hand, I wonder how much it'd take to recover, says Perigord. Orange then uses an issue of Shonen Jump to block it. Terrabellum bickers at Souffle as Yokotani acknowledges Henrik. He states that Henrik will be reported for illegal trespassing and attempted murder. Yokotani then acknowledges Nobunaga as the samurai hurls his sword into the lawyer's head. He then pulls the sword out and says, I see, so you can move other people's damage too. As it turns out, Terrabellum was the one that transferred the damage. Sweet Home Damage can transfer damage in the means of attack. Damage dealt to whatever the right hand is touching is transferred to the user. Damage to the user can be redirected to whatever the left hand is holding, and there must be contact at the moment of attack. Nobunaga then says he'll skewer the lawyer like a kebab. Terrabellum then reminds Yokotani that he's the guard. Yokotani activates LSDF, Mohist Attack, which provides a defensive force that cannot take damage. However, it cannot deal damage either. Their sentence is undeniably eviction. Nobunaga attacks, but it's ineffective. Retreat! These guys are probably invincible types. The guard confiscates Nobunaga's katana, as the swordsman urges Henrik to get away while he can. After the eviction, Yokotani urges Henrik to do likewise. Henrik returns to the laundry room and decides to put the transmitter there by forcing himself to puke. Nobunaga is now back in room 3101. If you enter through the front, it transports you to the Haley hideout, and if you exit through the door, you end up back here. Nobunaga then thinks that there's a jump point as Henrik returns. Henrik will work out the hideout's location by mobilizing the whole family. Henrik notes that the Haley family looked like a bunch of amateurs. Nevertheless, Nobunaga notes that the one moving the pieces, i.e. Morena, isn't stupid. Finks and Phaeton determine that the hideout is on tier 2 or 4. Phaeton suggests that they use N, but Finks is opposed to this idea since his N always breaks up when he's distracted, and given that they're in a large crowd, he'll get distracted rather easily. Nobunaga reconvenes with the two as the guard allows them to pass. Just then, something begins to bug Nobunaga. As they travel to tier 4, the target gets further away, confirming that the hideout must be on tier 2. Nobunaga begins to panic, suggesting that they should grab Franklin since they underestimated the Haley's power. In addition, fetching Franklin would be useful if Hisoka shows up. Just then, an emergency announcement then comes over the PA. We then transition to Prince Tyson's room. All of her employees are role-playing for her amusement. Guilano is told to be reborn again as a cold bodyguard that is really sweet deep down, to which he obliges. Aizunavi determines that Tyson's Nenbi's power is linked to her Bible. It turns out that Tyson's mother handed out the Bibles as a condition to have her join the Succession War. Tyson wasn't too keen on joining the Succession War in the first place, so this was kind of a way of doing it. Aizunavi recommends that Tyson's mother have the king read the Bible at the next banquet. Elsewhere, Queen Psycho wants to see her daughter Fugetsu, but the current restrictions prevent her from doing so. Psycho then bemoans the loss of Kacho, particularly because she served as a shield for her sister. Kacho's guardian beast wants to make Fugetsu the monarch, but wants to keep the fact that she's dead a secret from her sister. Though Melody is distraught, she agrees to help Kacho's Nen Beast. It turns out that the other princes have caught on to the fact that Melody was involved in the escape, so Kacho will have to comply with their demands. Kaizuru states that the most effective way of protecting Fugetsu is by offing the other high-ranking princes. Kaizuru recommends a slow-acting poison. Melody wonders why Kaizuru wants to help them out, and he admits that he likes her, in a romantic sort of way. Despite his words, Melody suspects that Kaizuru has an ulterior motive. Kaizuru will move forward with the plan as Kacho decides to tell Fugetsu that the other top 4 princes need to be defeated at all cost. Kacho returns to the interrogation room as Kaizuru meets up with her there. Kaizuru Kaizuru then tells Steiner that a worst-case scenario is if martial law is declared, where the army then takes control of the three branches of the government. In such a scenario, the Ministry of Justice would be labeled dissidents, and they would be executed. Steiner says it would be a disaster for everyone if he were to die. Kacho returns to the room and immediately panics when she can't find Fugetsu. She uncovers the bed sheets and finds one of Fugetsu's doors. Without Kacho, however, Fugetsu is stuck in a one-way tunnel. Kacho suspects that she might be trying to hide from an attacker. Fugetsu then opens a door and says she can now manifest doors more than once a day, and she can manifest a return door. The more she uses the magic, the better she feels. But Kacho notices that her personal health is deteriorating. I've always known that you've been protecting and looking out for me, Ka-chan. Now it's my turn. I'll do whatever it takes. No, I want to. Kacho tells Fugetsu to lie down and rest. Melody sets up a situation where she can see Fugetsu in the hallway and is horrified by what she sees. Dark spirits are wrapped around her body as her aura is dwindling, mimicking the state of Zetsu. To prevent Fugetsu from dying, Melody will need to get someone to perform an exorcism. Melody then walks into a room with Prince Zhang-Lei, as she wonders how Fugetsu became possessed in the first place. Zhang-Lei commends Melody on her splendid performance at the recital. Zhang-Lei wants to hear the recital once more, and wants Melody to accept one of his coins. Bontaine, captain of the 4th Prince's private guard, invites Melody to Srednik's room. Melody, however, cannot decide that since she's Kacho's bodyguard. However, she would be happy to perform given the opportunity. Melody then rules out the 4th Prince's involvement in Fugetsu's condition. Melody tells Kaizuru they can't perform their plan at the next banquet, as they need to find out more about Fugetsu's condition. Melody instructs Kaizuru to go to room 1014 to tell Kurapika, since he's the only person that she can trust. Melody notes that neither Zhang-Lei or Bontaine's hearts faltered when she brought up the idea of negotiations. She now can't rule out any of the princes as potential suspects. In room 1014, Longhee states that the water divination is unnecessary, since he already can use Nen. Kurapika then agrees to Longhee's proposed contract. I'll join hands with the 5th Prince Tubepa. And the chapter ends with no chance to catch their breath. The crucible of death spreads throughout the ship. It is 11:45 a.m. on the 10th day of the voyage. Furikov knows that Longhee already knows Nen, so he wonders if she's going to pretend to be awakened by Kurapika's specialization attack, or if she's going to reveal herself instead. Longhee then admits that she already knows how to use Nen, but she is not the user who summoned the white snakes. She then activates her Nen ability, which allows her to bestow a power or take one away to whoever signs the contract. Now she's going to explain the terms, but she wants Kurapika to ally with Prince Tubepa. Now Tubepa is unaware that she's a Nen user, so the contract is being used to fulfill another goal. Unsure what to make of this, Kurapika pulls out his dowsing chain and points his gun at her to ascertain the full truth. Disclosing the whole truth is a condition of her Nen, but her true intention is to bestow Kurapika with a Nen power. Now she's a bit hesitant, yet she reveals that she's beyond Netero's biological daughter. Now beyond fraudulently facilitated marriages involving young, high-ranking Kakin soldiers. The offspring of these marriages came from Netero, and they were to become the prince's royal guards. Their Nen abilities were awakened at birth, and Longhee discovered this through her adoptive parents. Now when Nen is awakened in an infant, said infant will develop Ten in Zetsu to protect itself from harsh fatigue. She then reveals that Beyond placed a curse upon them. Mahaka, Longhee's half-sister, discovered this because her parents eagerly talked about their dream of unifying the entire world with Beyond. Each of Beyond's children were cursed with a terrifying dark Nen that activates upon death. Please use Gyo and take a look, says Longhee. Longhee proceeds to show them the curse upon the backside of her tongue. Now she was bred to assassinate a target. In fact, Beyond made several quote-unquote appetizing sacrifices, and they were all designed to take out the various princes. Now she's unaware of her target, but she's certain that she will curse her target upon death. There are over 10 quote-unquote appetizing sacrifices, and it's all a means for Beyond to end the succession war. Kurapika speculates that Beyond wants to facilitate Benjamin's ascension to the throne, but Longhee doesn't believe this is right. I believe that one of the princes is Beyond's child, exclaims Longhee. Now Kurapika is unsure about this, as he thought that only biological children were eligible for the throne. However, Oito confirms that legitimate children of Nasubi's wives are technically eligible for the throne, which means that they do not need to be biological children of Nasubi. Kurapika tells the rest of the class that he's negotiating terms for a peace treaty with Tubepa. Now the contract prohibits attacks between the two parties. This includes attacks against the queen mothers, princes, and the bodyguards. Now the contract will renew weekly if a representative registers in room 1014 by 9 a.m. every Sunday. Now, if anyone infringes upon this deal, a week of enforced Zetsu will take place. If Kurapika signs, he'll be able to use Longhee's ability for one time, which sounds kind of like a good deal. Kurapika's chain hasn't budged, which means that Longhee believes what she's saying. Now, Longhee's real goal is to eliminate the prince that is Beyond's child. Interesting little thing about this, if Beyond had merely divulged this information beforehand to Longhee, she wouldn't have felt this way, and she would have carried out her plan as Beyond intended. Now, after they're done, Furikov is suspicious about what happened inside the room. He jokes about leaving the class, as he wonders what's wrong with Baba Maina. Elsewhere, Beyond wonders if Kanzai has any other books to read. He then requests to speak to someone, as we're left to wonder, what is Beyond's true goal? It is 1:30 p.m. on the 10th day of the voyage. Temfturi informs Zhang Lei that if he, Tubeppa, and Wolba are the last three remaining, then the 5th and the 14th prince will renounce the throne to him. Tubeppa is pleased to hear about the alliance, and even welcomes Prince Wobble to his room. Rihan concludes that Tubeppa is colluding with Wobble, or to be more precise, with Kurapika. Zhang Lei rewards Temfturi with a coin, and views the current developments as a step in the right direction. However, he wonders if renunciation is a valid solution to the succession war. He then notes that the coin he's been holding onto for 10 days has had no effect, which means it only has an effect when he gives it out to someone. Tubeppa is pleased that Benjamin's guards will now be more focused on Zhang Lei than herself. Tubeppa's Nen Beast then reveals itself, as Rihan suspects that it's a conditional type. Balsamilko pulls out a small cartridge from his shoe, and it contains a weapon of mass destruction. Now, it was considered a failure, but it's the perfect silent killer. The initial symptoms resemble the stomach flu, and it becomes unstable less than 30 seconds in the air. But if someone does get infected, the pathogens proliferate, leading to death in 12 hours and multiple organ failures. Furthermore, it leaves no trace on an autopsy. Now, he has a very specific target for this weapon, and it's none other than the 9th Prince, Halkenberg. In room 1004, Serednik has finally achieved a state of Zetsu in less than 10 seconds. It took Salkov a whole year to achieve this feat, and he's known Zetsu since birth. And because we now know that he knew Zetsu at birth, we can conclude that he's one of Beyond's children. Salkov is stunned by Serednik's genius, yet his temperament would only lead to bad outcomes. He suspects that Serednik's Nen Beast can store up aura and can release it when the 4th prince enters a state of Zetsu. Vantine steps in to inform Serednik about the situation with Melody. Now, it turns out that she's being detained by the Justice Department. Benjamin wants Melody for his own purposes, yet Serednik is determined to not let this happen, since he's the one that wants Melody. Zalkov fumes about how easy the 4th prince is learning Zetsu, as he tries to maintain his composure. In Melody's cell in the Justice Bureau, Melody looks at a picture of Fugetsu's back, and as you can see, there's a clear mark on the right shoulder blade. Melody suspects that Fugetsu fell into a trap, and subsequently got marked. If Fugetsu uses her ability now, 2 doors will appear. However, only one of them will be real, the other one is a trap. This is how she can use her magic wormhole more than once a day. If she continues to use the enemy's ability though, she'll get weaker and weaker until her life force eventually runs out. Kacho suspects that Lazarus' guardian spirit beast is behind this, which means he'll have to take him out to save Fugetsu. Fugetsu cannot use her ability to get off of the ship, but it does connect to the room where the lifeboats are located, and any prince who tries to escape the ship ends up dying. She proposes that they take Lazarus there to get rid of him. Kaiser will serve as the mule as he'll carry Lazarus' body through the tunnel. In effect, Melody will subdue him with her music. Fugetsu will open up the portal, and Kaiser will carry his body through. To do this though, they'll need a door inside of Prince Lazarus' estate. They're going to deliver a letter containing Prince Kacho's last message, thus giving them access to Prince Lazarus' room. But to avoid any suspicion, they're going to go to each prince's estate. Kaiser is fully invested in this plan, as he believes Fugetsu will change the whole system for the better. Melody doesn't detect any change in his heartbeat, but she still suspects that someone might be manipulating him. And with this, Kaiser, Fugetsu, and the Justice Bureau make their way to the various princes' estates. Benjamin shows a level of concern for his younger sister's well-being, as it looks like she's on her last legs. When she hands him the letter, his guardian spirit beast screeches, causing the evil spirits to fly off. While reading the letter, Benjamin wonders if they have found Muse yet. Kaiser says not yet, but they could enforce their special authority to search the other prince's corridors. Benjamin says that this is unnecessary, as this situation does not necessitate the use of special martial law. Kaiser's leading question has revealed Benjamin's intentions, that is to use martial law at some point in the contest. And with this knowledge, Kaiser can use his alliance with Fugetsu and Melody to act accordingly. Fugetsu proceeds to hand out personalized letters to each prince. Lazarus is surprised by the contents of his letter, as he hands it over to Kaiser to read. In a flashback, Kaiser recommended that they shake up the contest with leaked information from the Justice Bureau. Back in the present, Lazarus is shocked by Kacho's letter, as it looks like they're trying to pit him against the 4th Prince Serednik, which he does not want to do. Basho takes notice of the evil spirits surrounding Fugetsu, and decides to provide some assistance. He writes a haiku, and by adding words of invocation, he can produce a healing or purification-like effect. Seasonal words further raise the effectiveness. Now it is 8:50 a.m. on day 11 of the voyage. Kacho wants to move quickly against Lazarus, as Melody will carry out their plan with her ocarina. Now a rumbling occurred above their room, and they suspect that it came from Prince Halkenberg. Halkenberg has fallen ill for the moment and did not read Kacho's letter. Melody then thinks about how his letter contains everything, including the truth about his real birth. Now with the succession war still in progress, the princess cannot escape the ship, which means that Kurapika will have to figure something out before any more princes die. Kurapika determines that Zhang Lei's coin differs depending on the owner. Zhang Lei gives Kurapika the number 10 coin. Kurapika doesn't want to rouse suspicion, but he suspects that the coin has a pseudo-corrosive type of manipulation. The net in the coins will increase exponentially if held for a long period of time, thus unlocking unique abilities within the wielder. In half a year, the user's aura nodes will open up, allowing them to use Nen, a process that usually takes years, by the way. While he explains this to Zhang Lei, he silently notes that the Guardian Sacred Beast will require a half-compulsory loyalty to Zhang Lei. Kurapika then surmises that Koven Toba must be holding the other 10 coin, and that he's keeping it a secret from Zhang Lei. Now Kurapika's info regarding Nen comes at a price, that being the protection of Prince Wobble. Now Kurapika notes that Benjamin benefits the most from a dispute amongst the other Mafia members, since it allows him to declare special martial law. And if that were to happen, it would place all the other princes on house arrest. Now deciding to stay in room 1014 or to move to 1003 comes with a cost. Kurapika is skating on thin ice, as it were, and he'll need to use intuition to navigate this precarious situation. Elsewhere, Cheadle and her team wheel Halkenberg down a hallway, as she orders a blood test and a CT scan for Halkenberg. Now Halkenberg currently possesses Balsamilko's body, and he wants his mother to refuse an autopsy. That way, his death can be explained as organ failure. Halkenberg determines that only one soul can remain in a body at a time, and priority is given to the one who activated the ability. His ability is Forced Soul Exchange, where a soul is swapped with the arrow's target. When there are two bodies, only one mind can be awake at a time. Now since death isn't clearly defined, it's reasonable to assume that both body and mind need to die to be eliminated from the contest. If a body on his side dies first, the victim's mind returns to its own body, but priority is given to the victim's mind. Therefore, when his body dies, Balsamilko will return, and Halkenberg's soul will be forcibly put to rest. To avoid this, he'll take a sedative to afford himself 10 hours to maintain control. Halkenberg's body arrives at the hospital, as it looks like it's at the end. We then see that Serednik can now enter a state of Zetsu in 3.5 seconds. Salkov can hardly believe his progress, as the 4th Prince's aura continues to swell to new heights. The second training session will take place tomorrow. Except for this time, Prince Camilla's guards will be in attendance. Kurapika worries about this, so he instructs Shimano to keep a close watch over the Queen and the Prince. Halkenberg's body tragically fades away, as Balsamilko, i.e. Halkenberg, tells Benjamin about the 9th Prince's final wishes. An announcement for Halkenberg's death is then made, as Nobunaga tells Phaeton and Finks that they might have to go all out in defeating the Haley family. We then see Hisoka playing a game of cards at a poker table. As he wanders around the casino, he says that ants and group abilities turn him off. He's a normal person after all, so he only wishes to be with someone one-on-one, and in that way, they can love each other to death. A fake Hisoka then notices the real one wandering around the casino. In a flashback, Chrollo instructed Bono to transform into Hisoka. With a wildcard like him out of the way for the Mafia, the spiders could fully dedicate themselves to catching him. Bono then rushes to a nearby bathroom to transform into Owl. His transformation metamorphosin allows him to transform into someone that he's talked to in person. And the longer that he's spent with that person, the longer he can stay in that transformed state. Because Lynch found out that he wasn't the real Hisoka, Bono was forced to kill her. In a flashback, Bono knocked Zakuro unconscious and transformed into him. After that, he took the form of the woman that he killed, i.e. Lynch, and led Zakuro to the theater. He hopes that Finks' group takes care of Hisoka before Chrollo. Now Chrollo is looking for a treasure that will give him an ability that will kill Hisoka for good. Now Bono knows why Chrollo left the number 9 spot open, and he hopes that they can close the curtain on this performance. And we gotta wonder to ourselves, what is he alluding to here? Kenny Wang says that the Haley just installed a new boss, which makes Nobunaga wonder if this is really the Haley on the ship. Though Wang knows of Morena, he has no idea what she's currently after. Nobunaga notes that their structure is very similar to that of the spiders. He also determines that they are attempting to destroy everything. And in this way, they're using human sacrifices to obtain supernatural power. Tajayo says that they may look like the Haley, but they are something different from the rest of the Kakin Mafia. Cha-R and Shi-Yu will fully cooperate. I'm asking you to crush the Haley. Secretly, Kenny Wang worries that the spiders will find Morena too soon, and this is going to accelerate the schedule. He then says that they might have to use their Joker card, which seems like Kenny Wang might be working with Morena. However, we don't know for sure at the moment. With Dogman at level 62, Morena wants him to find someone of particular interest, which he can easily do with his new ability. In processing, Tevelaris, Daemon, and Quorol have all reached level 51, as they are now prepared to get revenge on Hinrik. Tajayo guides Nobunaga's group through the inner layers of the Black Whale. Now the spiders determine that the Haley are using the waste treatment areas as a killing grounds. Nobunaga decides to head back, as he warns Finks and Phaeton about Yokotani's LSDF, i.e. his Nen ability. We then see Hinrik's transmitter revert to its original state in the Haley hideout. After finding out that Lynch is dead, Hinrik probes Zakro to determine what happened. Zakro notes how uncharacteristically calm Lynch was right after the situation transpired. Hinrik hypothesizes that someone else was posing as Lynch. Zakro says that Lynch woke him up, and said that was clearly Hisoka. Hinrik thinks that Hisoka was posing as Lynch, and kept Zakro alive to throw them off of the trail. It's also possible that this was a fake Hisoka, but in any case, they'll avenge Lynch's death no matter who killed her. The funeral procession for Halkenberg is ready to take place, as Chrollo conjures up a cell phone from his skill hunter. Now with this cell phone, you're supposed to find your ideal partner. It doesn't work as intended though, as he contemplates going to Tier 1 to try it there. Now he's aware of the succession battle, and he's also aware of Kakin's 3 sacred treasures, that being the Seed Urn, the ritual vase for succession participants, the Lotus Anchorite, the Overseer of the Succession Battle, and the Sword of Good Omens, the Sword of Ascension given to the next king. Now it seems like the treasures being on Tier 3 through 5 is probably pretty low. The 3 treasures would be guarded more securely than the king himself. Now Chrollo wants to steal the items so that he can evolve Skill Hunter, thus allowing him to assure his victory over Hisoka. Now even if Hisoka kills him before he reaches the treasures, the spider will live on, and for him, this is something very worthy of awe. While the procession takes place, Chrollo finds out that the person that he's looking for is within range. However, he now knows that they're up above on the higher tiers. With the funeral procession taking place, it is now day 12, 1 p.m. on the Black Whale. Serenik's soldier friends gather on the 3rd tier to discuss Borkson's absence. They consider the possibility that she was abducted, and Adosin speculates that it might have been the Haley organization. Elsewhere, Borkson awakes in the Haley organization to see Morena staring at her. Morena confirms that this is the Haley hideout, and makes it clear that she wants Borkson to join them. Now the longer that this takes, the more the risk increases for both sides. She then offers one compromise, that they play a negotiation game. Morena has 7 cards while Borkson has 5 cards. Now they take turns picking each other's cards, and Morena has to respond to the questions asked on her cards. Borkson then flips over her cards, and discovers that she has a yes, no, and R card. The R card allows her to return a card from the graveyard to her hand. The Joker card can turn into a yes or no, and the X card is a non-response. And in this way, the X has no negative consequences, whereas the other cards, she'll have to live with her decision. So if yes is her last card, she'll have to join the Haley organization. No seems preferable, but Borkson is skeptical that this is the case. She thusly concludes that yes, no, and Joker are pointless, so she needs to end up with the X card or the R card. Morena will now explain her cards. There's the Aim card, which makes Morena explain her goals, the Power card, which makes her explain her powers, the Question A card, which allows Borkson to ask as many questions as she wants. However, the responses to the questions are either yes or no. The QB card, which allows Borkson to probe Morena for more details regarding the QA answers. But that being said, she can only probe about one question. She can't ask about all the questions. Borkson then asks Morena if she's going to cheat at any point during this game. Morena explains a method in which one could side-skirt this issue, but she reassures Borkson that she will not cheat during the game. Now, the deal card allows Borkson to grab a card from her graveyard and put it back into her hand. However, to do this, she must fulfill one request that Morena makes. Now, Borkson has one condition to playing the game. She wants to be able to pick her own face-down cards, and Morena is completely fine with this. And with this, the game commences. Borkson chooses the aim card first, so now Morena will explain her goal. My goal is the destruction of Kakin. Once that's done, I'll keep trying until the destruction of all humanity. And I need you to do that. Borkson is unsatisfied with this response, so Morena decides to explain a bit more of her past. Turns out the real Morena Prudo is in a grave, so the woman sitting in front of her is only posing as Morena. But for the purposes of the story, we're still going to refer to her as Morena, just because we don't have another name to go off of. Now, Morena is a carnival orphan. Kakin holds a festival every couple of years where they go into a village, and they divide the people into entertainers or others. Morena was born from this deplorable festival, and was subsequently marked as flesh by the Haley organization. For 20 years, she was treated as meat, meaning that she was likely raped and abused for 20 years. I mean, goddamn. Kakin will never change its deplorable ways. So Morena has assembled a group of people with special abilities, instrumental in achieving her goals. With her goals explained, Morena instructs Borkson to choose her next card. Borkson picks the Joker card, as it now goes to the graveyard. She now picks Morena's power card, which means that Morena will have to explain her Nen abilities. Morena's ability allows her to give powers to others, but she can only do this to people that have the same goals as her. She's like a quote-unquote parent with 22 children. When the children accumulate points, they become more powerful. While Morena continues to talk, Borkson thinks about her own upbringing in Kakin, and how she never wanted any of this. She truly feels empathetic towards Morena. However, she would never consider murder as an option. Morena says that Borkson is a specialist type, and this was ascertained thanks to Dogman's abilities. Morena says that they've identified many specialists on the Black Whale, so the longer that this game goes on, means that there's an increased likelihood that they'll find someone else who aligns with their interest. This is why it's especially dangerous for Borkson the longer the game goes on. Morena says that a specialist can learn any type of Nen, and this allows them to create hybrid abilities. The game then resumes, with Borkson selecting the Yes card and subsequently sending it to the graveyard. Now it seems like Borkson will not be joining them since the Yes card is now gone. Morena then says that there's a difference between No and X. No is a formal declaration that she does not want to join the Haley, and because she would know all their secrets, they would have to kill her as a result. X, on the other hand, will void the game, meaning she'll get to walk away scot-free. Now, the X card is a severe detriment to the Haley, but this type of restriction is necessary to make Morena's powers more potent. It's the same for those who join. By risking their lives in this game, the effects of Morena's abilities are that much stronger. Borkson selects the X card next, meaning that the No card, i.e. the Death card, and the Return cards are the only ones remaining. Just then, an emergency announcement states that martial law has been declared. And this is a huge development, and the message is repeated once more just to make sure that everyone's aware. Strict instructions are given to all the tiers, and now all the royal soldiers are granted the right to shoot anyone suspicious without warning. Borkson determines that they must be above tier 3, since this announcement wouldn't be broadcast to the lower tiers. Now, it would be in Borkson's best interest if the royal army came in right now and neutralized the Haley. However, they might assume that Borkson is in cahoots with them. The deal card is then chosen, which means that Borkson can return a card from her graveyard if she fulfills a request. And that request is that she's got to kiss Morena. Morena then explains that there are 3 conditions for her ability to work. 1, a yes in the negotiation game. 2, she must infect him with a kiss. And 3, they must be present while a Haley member commits murder. Borkson then contemplates the notion that they rigged the speakers to get all the broadcasts in the hideout, meaning that they could be on any floor. Borkson agrees to the kiss, as Morena is surprised that it's her first time. And with this, Borkson decides to get the X card back. However, she wants to check her face down cards since she was busy with the kiss, and she wants to make sure that no one swapped out any of the cards. Morena allows this, and as it turns out, the Haley have not cheated in any regard. Borkson chooses her next card, and it's the X card, sending it right back to the graveyard. Borkson chooses Q&A next, and attempts to pin down the location of the hideout. But, as it turns out, it's not on any of the tiers, not 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Borkson then feels a vibration, as she correctly determines that it's between tiers 2 and 3. It turns out that Morena had this area planned out before the Black Whale was built, and there are 5 entrances that lead to the hideout, with a total of 21 members. Borkson then wonders if there's any way that Morena would change her goal, but the leader of the Haley remains steadfast in destroying everything. Now with only 2 cards left, Borkson slides the card that she doesn't want towards Morena, and keeps the one that she does want to herself. They both flip over the cards at the same time, and because of good chance, Borkson has ended up with the return card, meaning she can take any card from her graveyard and put it back in her hand. Morena congratulates her on a job well done, as Borkson apologizes for crushing the R card in excitement. To Morena's surprise, Borkson uses the R card to return the Yes card to her hand, meaning that she wants to join the Haley organization. Now, while Borkson seems okay with this on the surface, deep down, she's screaming that she does not want this to happen. Morena is disappointed that Borkson cheated by marking the return card earlier on. Now, because the game is part of Morena's ability, a manipulative aspect kicked in so that Borkson could only choose yes or no if she cheated, which basically means that she's either got to join or get killed. Borkson confirms that she will join the Haley organization, as the other members applaud this. Morena's Contagion is like a game app. It's installed in the members, with Morena controlling the play data. Now because of this, Morena will always know her level, the number of points she has, location, and status. Borkson is free to do as she likes. However, if she's of no use to them, they will betray her by killing her. After all, killing is part of their goal. Now with this ability installed in her, Borkson assumes that all her conversations will be heard from now on. So she needs to attain power if she wants to go against them. Before Borkson heads off back to her comrades, she wants to learn more about the Haley from Morena. Benjamin's soldiers have found a room that leads to the Haley hideout. Squad 3 will deal with the Haley, as Benjamin says that Zhang Lei and Lazarus's whereabouts are currently unknown. Benjamin has 9.5 hours before he slips into a coma, due to him being infected by TSK-17. How he was infected is unknown at the moment, but it's pretty likely that Halkenberg is the prime suspect. Now, if Benjamin can be anointed as the successor to the throne, he can hand the throne over to his child before he dies. He then cryptically says that there are 4 princes left, as he is then confronted by Bodobai, Mizaistum, and Kaiser. Benjamin says that the reason for martial law is due to a biological attack, orchestrated by Serednik and Halkenberg. He wishes to leverage the princes in Tier 1 to unify the branches of government, and in this way, he'll be able to control everything. Now, Bodobai walks up to Benjamin and says he's looking rather pale, but the first prince refutes this by saying that there's no problem at all. Kaiser suspects that Benjamin was infected by the same virus as Halkenberg. He now wants to stave off this aggression for the next day so that he can see the light again. I still have my final stronghold, proclaims Kaiser. Alright, and that's all the chapters that we got for the Succession contest. Now obviously, some of these answers could change in the future based on how the arc plays out. In fact, I absolutely expect that to happen. But for the moment, we still got 70 chapters to go off of, so that's a significant amount of story to talk about. So in terms of the best fights so far, it's definitely got to go to Hisoka and Chrollo. That Heaven's Arena battle was just absolutely epic. It was like 8 or 9 chapters. It was so complex. There was so much going on. You know, Chrollo's controlling the entire crowd at one point. They're all going after Hisoka. Hisoka's trying his best to avoid it all, but ultimately it's not enough. He gets suffocated by the crowd itself. But then the fact that Hisoka gets resurrected and then starts going after the Phantom Troop, you know, just wants to wipe everyone out, is just such a cool storyline. Now, best character for me, and let's be honest, there's a lot of characters in this arc to like, but the one that takes the cake for me is Morena, especially given the recent events finding out about her past. You know, she was abused and taken advantage of for 20 years, and now she's exacting her revenge. She's not only going after the Kaken Empire, she wants to destroy the entire world. And her net ability is so cool, in which she can control 22 people at a time. They get net abilities based on the amount of points that they have, by killing civilians, net users, and princes. It's just such a cool concept. The negotiation game was a really nice touch by Togashi, and she's just a really interesting character. I can't wait to see how that relationship between her and Borkson plays out in the future. And then as for the best moment, I gave that one to Serednik. And specifically, I'm talking about his Nen ability. the one in which he can see 10 seconds into the future and then alter that future based on what he saw. Talk about a broken ability. I mean, this is the type of ability that you just have to say to yourself, is this character too strong? You know Togashi is going to find a way in which he will be defeated in the future, and I can't wait to see how that manifests. How does someone figure out a way to beat this Nen ability? Because it seems like it's some kind of godlike ability, but yet there's got to be some solution to this. He's going to make it so elegant and epic and awesome that I can't wait to see how it plays out. But in terms of an ability itself, it's just so cool. And then as for the overall score, I gave this one an 8.9. So far, the arc is great. However, it's not finished. So if it was finished, I'd probably put it in like the 9.2, 9.3 area. But I have to see that ending. I want to see everything resolve itself, how that happens, what conflicts happen, what sort of battles happen, who wins the succession contest, what happens with Hisoka and the spiders. Look, it has the potential to be one of the best arcs of all time. But again, we have to see it manifested on the pages. So that's the only thing holding it back for the moment, but it is damn close to being masterful, and if Togashi pulls this one off, it could be like one of the top 5 arcs of all time. So yeah, with that guys, that's the end of the video. There are no more chapters to go off of right now. It currently is stopping at 410, but Togashi is hard at work. It's very likely that we'll get chapters 411 to 420 within this year. And of course, when that happens, I'll add on to this video, and I'll produce individual chapter reviews as well. So I hope you guys can watch those so we can have nice discussions together. But otherwise, if you watch this video to the very end, I thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.